Hey guys, before this amazing podcast starts, I want to give a quick word to our sponsor for this episode, Surfshark VPN. But Max, what is a VPN? Virtual Private Network. A VPN keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all the information sent between your device and the internet. If you're connected to any public Wi-Fi in an airport, hotel, or cafe, you are always at risk. Surfshark VPN keeps your personal data protected from big companies and cyber criminals. It can block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, allowing you to surf the web safely. VPN also allows you to change the real location of your device with a new one, which means we can virtually travel to any country around the globe. And with 3,200 servers in 65 countries, there is so much to explore. With the click of a button, you can access content on Netflix and other programs that are not normally available in the United States. You can use Surfshark VPN on unlimited devices under one account. Not bad considering Surfshark VPN is one of the cheapest VPN providers out there. Best of all is you can use my exclusive discount code Don't Be Sour to get an extra 3 months free added to a subscription. So click the first link down in the description to find out for yourself today. And Surfshark VPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's episode. And now let's begin.
Yeah.
What do you do, sir?
I'm a gigolo living on disability due to workplace occupational accident.
Woo! Yeah, dude.
Can I just say, Max, I am a big fan of this podcast. I've been listening since last week.
Thanks, man.
Now, if you want to hear something terrible, Max,
I guess.
I learned that you don't pay your employees.
Is that the same for you?
Yeah, 100%, man.
You're not a Fresh and Fit fan?
When they just basically want to like jerk each other off. Hey,
Yes.
how much is it per bottle?
This one?
You said guest bring it? Which guest?
This one was Anabar guys brought this.
So that's like a protein company?
Yeah, protein bar company.
So wait, before we begin, because
Yeah.
I want this off the record for you, is just explain the stomach stuff to me.
I got really drunk during my girlfriend's birthday party, like I've done hundreds of thousands of times.
Right.
And I'd say once a year, very rarely, maybe once every couple years, I'll throw up from drinking. Like I drink too much, I throw up. Like it happens to everyone, right? And it just happened that I threw up and I basically tore my esophagus, which is, it can come from a violent throw up. I mean, you're throwing up, it's like your stomach liner and your esophagus is like, rupturing, right? Or it's kind of like a violent situation. So it's kind of like an unfortunate, it happened to me kind of thing.
That gag reflex. So you're okay now?
I know, yes.
All right.
I just thought I drank a lot of like cranberry juice because it was red, and then and then I started throwing up like more times throughout the day, and I was like, I didn't drink any
And it
cranberry
got worse
juice.
and worse?
Yeah, it was just, it was like, it's a visual thing. I mean, I can show you photos of it, but just imagine like throwing up like this much liquid or like half of this, and it just all being blood, all of it. Not like.
So you went immediately to the ER, I assume.
I went immediately to the emergency place, and then they were just like, "Oh, you should go see a specialist like tomorrow." And then I had to go into the bathroom right then, and I threw up all in their bathroom. And I was like, "It just happened again." They're like, "Okay, you should go to the hospital." I was like, "So the one extra throw up was you saying I should go to the hospital?" But yeah, I got there, and then my like blood levels were like a little weird, and then it turned out I had some like ulcers in my stomach, which is the silver lining. I like to think that because that happened, they then had to do a endoscopy to then find my ulcers. That then I took medication,
And you're okay now.
Yes, I have not been, which is probably good, but I haven't been that drunk.
Did you just touch my foot, dude?
I'll play footsies. That's not the only thing I touched during this podcast.
Look, I felt it.
You ready for this?
100%.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Don't Be Sour Show. I'm your host, Max Tuning, and today, I say it's a special guest every single time, but this one is a special I'm so excited for this. We have Omar Isuf. Did I pronounce that right?
Pretty much.
Oh my God. All the way from
Canada.
the hat of America.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man.
Can I just say, Max, I am a big fan of this podcast. I've been listening since last week, and I learned a lot of different things. I mean, I learned that you don't pay your employees. I learned that OnlyFans is an example, how much money you can make. And I was curious. I was genuinely curious. And I forget, what was the guest name? OnlyFans? I did listen to a bit of that one.
Jazzy?
Yeah, because I listened to the Christian Guzman one, which was a great episode, right? Shout out to the Goose. But with OnlyFans, I was thinking about selling, pictures of my feet. I don't know if anyone's going to buy. I was just curious, very informative. And then I found out now you are the editor, producer. You are everything for this podcast.
I really am. Yeah.
Okay. I'm impressed.
Yeah, but like I think when people hear about that, they're like, "Oh my God, like that sounds advanced," because podcasts is like there's multiple cameras and stuff. But if you've edited a YouTube video and you're decently proficient at it, you can do a podcast no problem. And everyone else just like, this is gonna sound like I'm knocking podcast editors, but they kind of like mark up what the tasks are. Like they'll be like, I'll mix and master your audio for you. In reality, that's dragging a couple of effects onto it, raising the levels. It's like 10 seconds. That is max mastering it.
I do find it impressive, and I will say I'm going to sandwich compliment you here, Max.
I'm going to pour some shots. Okay. You keep talking.
You go ahead. I'm going to sandwich compliment you because I think you've done a really good job over the past year. I have listened to a few episodes of becoming a very good host, listening, like active listening, writing down notes, all those sorts of things. But I have a question for you because I saw the last few guests. Of course, you have Jay Cutler on. You have Christopher Bumstead, a fellow Canadian, who said that he used to watch you in 2014. And then he just said, I stopped watching a few years ago. I was like, all right, bro, like you didn't have to say that out loud. But what was up with those guests, Fresh and Fit?
You're not a Fresh and Fit fan?
I mean, based on what they said, no.
Listen.
The book, what was the book? I was watching it because I was trying to, once again, review. Like why women shouldn't. I don't know what
why women deserve less.
You want to hear something funny?
Yes.
That individual reached out to me a year and a half ago to be on the podcast.
Well, he's a big fan of.
I don't give a shit. So let me ask you this, Max, because they have some trash ass opinions, and I can say
I know.
And not only that, because you're a smart human. Is it playing the algorithm? Like what was going on there? Or the question I have for you, and this is me interviewing you now, is that I do think for starting off the podcast and everything you've done, you have very good views. So is it one of those things where you're looking for like, okay, these people are socially current, they're kind of a hot topic, let's have them on. Like, how do you procure guests? I assume for me, I only know this because you contacted me. I've been MIA for like 3 years. I assume on your Rolodex of guests, it'd be running thin. Like I'm not the season 1, season 2. This was a back of backups. I haven't made a video since 2017.
No, you're not the backup. Yeah. I am running thin on guests, but that's not because why you're on the show.
But so what was the thought process just behind that? Because I see you branching out. You had a few others. There's that Alex dude.
Alex Ramosi.
So is that like, what is the direction? Like, what was that?
Listen, okay, I knew that having them on the show would be a very controversial take. Yeah. But my opinion is, just because people have completely opposite polarizing views doesn't mean a conversation can be had. And I think I did as good of a job as I could have done to discuss topics that I don't necessarily agree with the other person, but to let them speak and just like, I think having a conversation is fine. And I don't know, I think a lot of what they do, I think there is some truth to a little and a lot of aspects of what they do. Do I think that the approach, and it's a very extreme way to think of it, and it's like it ain't that serious type of way? Yes, for sure. But they make a lot of valid points. People like even Andrew Tate, which I'm sure you're not a fan of, is like a lot of what he says, crazy shit that I'm like, bro, well, like, come on. Like the world ain't that serious. No. Yes. But are there small tidbits of information that I think...
Do you say titbits or tidbits?
Yes. I think people can find there is value to be had. And I think you should take it with a grain of salt. And I think if you go in just immediately going, I'm going to hate this, you're going to hate it.
So the thing is, I think that when we platform people, sometimes whether we're aware of it or not, we implicitly condone some of their behaviors because you're giving them attention and notoriety. And what it reminds me of, Max, not that specific scenario, but what I've been cognizant of from being on for a long time. And I've had people on, as an example, let's say like some people as it relates to injury, where they're not up to date now with the current science. And so I am condoning this person by bringing them on my channel because people trust me, and then they view it, and that might not be good information. I think we have a moral obligation that as our kind of platform increases, as our notoriety, and that's why I talk about Joe Rogan on my like the Iron Culture podcast. Some of the things I don't respect about him is that either knowingly he does this, or he simply, in his case, I think he simply doesn't know, that he views it as just a conversation. But to give an example, let's say climate change, right? So you have any mainstream media, CNN, Fox News, doesn't matter, right? And they'll put some sort of political pundit on one side, and then they'll put the actual climate change scientists on the other. And they'll say, like, so climate change, what's going on? And the scientist is like, yeah, so we have like thousands and thousands and thousands of research. I'm not sure where you want me to begin here. And then the political pundit's like, things get a little warmer. It happens. It's summer. And like people watch both of that and they think to themselves, oh, those aren't bad opinions, because one person is media savvy, the political pundit, right? Whereas the climate change scientists, the climate scientists, they're not really, right? They're nerdy, they're scientists. And so when they view the optics of the situation, I think that's where people like a Tate have become popular, or like what was it? He's a fellow Canadian. We disown him. Like The Ladder with Crowder. Stephen Crowder, like just like some of that.
I'm aware of who he is, but I don't consume any of the content.
Man, it's like, to be clear, guys. No, it's so he has that, like, you come up to him and he says an opinion. But if we look at it from a marketing standpoint, because you're savvy, he has the microphone, he has the power, he's holding it, and then he interviews the guest. He's framed front and center, so he has all the power. He has his binder full of notes, and he'll just interview anyone. I want to talk about these topics, and so he'll always look good. So I think there are people that are able to properly manipulate certain things in order to make arguments that are actually tough to argue in favor of, especially when in the case, it doesn't matter with those two individuals or whatever the case might be, where I would view it as them being misogynistic and a bunch of other things. When they say there's plenty of research, that was the part, because I was aware of them. I'm like, we're not good.
Well, I kept asking,
where's the research?
And I didn't realize until in the comments that they said, like, oh, they danced around the comment of where they got their research from. The last thing I'll say on it, so we all want to talk about us, is I got a lot of pushback, not only from, like, a lot of the women that I'm surrounded with, my girlfriend, Christian's girlfriend, like, of like girls,
strong women,
girls messaging them, going like, "Can you believe that Maxx is giving them a platform, whatever?" But it's like, if I have opposing views of someone, and I just tell you that I have opposing views, I would think the best way to, like, back up that I truly do have these opposing views would be to discuss with someone who has an opposite way of thinking and be like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't agree, and this is why. And, like, let me ask you more in depth from someone who doesn't agree with everything that you say. Because if they only have interviews of them talking with people who are like, woo, yeah, dude, boo women, right? Like, then I think that content is only going to continue to flourish in that negative space. And if I can be the light, the small, skinny leg light.
There you go.
I don't know. On one side, it's like, yes, it was a great boost to the channel and everything. That wasn't really the main reason why I did it. I just think I think you can have conversations. Would I bring someone on who abuses animals on a regular basis? No, but I think.
Well, I killed a zebra for this, so this is actually awkward. So
I think if people have different views, it's like you can not like them, but I think having a discussion is not the end of the world.
Yeah, Max, give me your hand. Don't worry about it. I'd say I think the podcast has a lot of potential. That's why I bring that up. You know what I mean? That I think you have done a very good job being an interviewer, and I think you've gotten a lot of fitness professionals on here, and I see it potentially transcending just the fitness side of things. So I was more curious for yourself with Don't Be Sour. I know it's a brand tie-in. You got to do it for the shekels. I understand how these things work. With
you were being sour about my guest on
Don't Be Sour. Well, isn't that the point? Don't you want that? You want that, like, clickbait? Like, what's the title going to be? Ending the beef, ending the feud with Omar, or like Omar said, what about Andrew Tate? Or like, you could take your pick.
Why Canadians hate Andrew Tate.
Mm-hmm. They hate freedom. Why they hate freedom. Like, when people will come, they hate freedom. But I do think it has potential. And that's why the last question for you, just about that out of curiosity, because I do think you're doing a solid job overall. What would you want the direction to be? Because you did tell me off air, and you could edit out whatever you're doing, because guess what? He is the editor.
I am the editor.
You said the views used to be better, but I mean, like, when you start anything, they'll be abnormally high, and of course,
no, I was talking about my YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay.
These ones are just all over the place.
Yeah. Audio wise, like, does it correlate, like, your video, because you get good video views? Do you also get good audio downloads? Or
I couldn't give two shits about, not that I don't care about people who only listen, but, like, I don't look at those analytics. I just look, because I know there could be, if a video doesn't perform well on YouTube, but they could still have another 20,000 listens on Spotify.
Yeah.
But I'm a YouTuber. I'm not an audioer.
Max, I get that, but bro, because you do want sponsors here.
I guess.
Why am I turning into your marketing guru right now? But if you do, it could be the proverbial tip of an iceberg in terms of your video views, and then the audio is here. And even at your current video views, you probably can get, if let's say the audio matches it, a pretty good sponsor that you would align with. I'm just saying, like, I know this from having that science-based podcast, Iron Culture. The offers that we get, like we did turn out, I could say this like publicly, they had like the accelerator where they do all these statistics with their algorithms for, how do you say, with Spotify to bring us on, but they want to be exclusive, this and that. And if we're getting those offers at that level, and for us, the video views are only 5% of our total downloads. So that's why I was curious for yourself and what you wanted. And I'm just saying that's what gives you leverage and then marketing power, because then you maybe have more monetary compensation with this podcast, which allows you to travel. I saw, like I brought up before, it was great where you had like Chris Bumstead, right? Yeah. And I think you had an honest, genuine conversation with him. I think you put him more at ease because he's someone that typically doesn't really do a lot of podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And all those sorts of things. So it just gives you more opportunities.
I think I'm kind of to the point, and which may not be the most business savvy, but with the podcast, it's like, would I love it for it to make a whole bunch of money and get a bunch of sponsorships? Yeah, of course. If I can do the exact same thing and make a great living off of this from it, I'd be like, sure. But whether I have no sponsors for the next 50 episodes, I'm going to keep making these things because I just love to do it. It's not like no one's sponsoring it. The show's not paying for itself. I'm out. Okay. And it's like I have other income streams. So it's like I don't really stress about the business side of this podcast yet.
So why didn't you fly me out in the Sour Strip helicopter then?
You came in a Jeep, dude. That's luxury right there. Grand Cherokee at that. That's top of the line.
Now, this is true.
I know this from a Grand Cherokee owner.
If only I knew someone else that was a Jeep enthusiast.
I know. The Jeep enthusiast.
I thought you said ep, like you were going to say episode, but I thought you were going to say Epstein. I'm like, bro, you're really hunting now for the title. Where it's like,
I've heard some crazy shit's coming out with that recently.
I'm actually not aware. But you can say whatever you want.
I get all my information from Twitter.
Okay.
I just keep seeing the name Bill Gates and that island starting to be on tweets. I'm not even kidding. Are you laughing because that's untrue or true?
No, it's just amusing to me because when you say you get all your information from Twitter, my girlfriend jokes that she gets all her information from TikTok. And
that's even more accurate.
I'm like, wait a second, because we're talking a little bit about TikTok, and I saw your videos and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Well, dude, what's up, guys? Welcome to the episode. No, just kidding.
Yeah, we're starting now.
Let's begin, man.
I
like I said, you and I go so far back.
Just take it straight, Max.
Tastes like
you're. How many shots do you think you've had in your life? Give me a ballpark. Over 1,000, I'd guess. Right? Easy. Think about it.
Easy.
Every single time you make that face, you haven't become habituated. Come on, Max.
Do you want to know?
You're a big boy, man.
I'll give you even more of a prime example. The word's going random, which is great. The people love this. You know, my old roommate, Paul Baber, dude. If you're watching this. He worked for a little bit at a hookah lounge. It was like the club of where I lived in Virginia. Bartender. Obviously, when your friend's a bartender, they're going to hook you up, right? So when we'd go there, he would pour the craziest strong drinks, right? Because he's hooking his buddies up. But I'd be like, no, I don't want you to do that because it's going to taste like ass. I don't like the taste of alcohol. I want it to taste delicious. The only reason I like taking shots is because I can get drunk faster and with less liquid in my belly and less calories. Not because I like it.
Damn.
I think it tastes like ass.
So you're just suffering for it. Suffering for the effect.
You see that, dude? This is like $100-some bottle of tequila.
Okay.
And if you gave me a $30 bottle of tequila, I'd make the same face. The same face. Omar,
talk to me.
Who are you, dude? Because we've been chatting people are like, Max, who? Maybe I don't know this guy. Yeah. Why don't you introduce this man?
I don't know who I am.
If you're in a does Canada have Uber?
Yes.
Y'all just got cars up there, right?
I still don't have one.
At the bottom.
I peeked at your notes when you went into.
A man does not look at another man's notes, dude.
Well, you want to see my notes? Hold on.
You are a winner. Yeah. Show the camera that. Show the camera.
You were saying, Uber cars, what was the question?
If you're in a Uber and someone's just like, listen, you hardcore metal, you obviously are in a band or something with those luscious locks and that headband.
Yeah.
What do you do, sir? What do you tell people?
So this is a true story.
I'd hope so.
Max. Those like entrepreneur get-togethers, like accelerators where everyone's like bragging
masterminds?
about. Yeah, bullshit like that where people talk about how much they sold or this and that. So I have a friend, he owns examine.com. nice dude, and he'll invite me to some of them. And I came up with a few different answers because I hated being inundated with people just bragging about themselves. And I would just say, I am currently unemployed and not seeking employment. That was one of them, which is the economic definition of someone being, from an economist, being unemployed. And then the other one I would say is that I'm a gigolo living on disability due to a workplace occupational accident, right? A hazard that occurred. And so if they ask genuinely, I say I just work online. Or I'll just say like I'm an online coach, even though I haven't coached for years and years and years.
Okay.
If someone's genuine about it, then I can get a little bit into it. And I would say that I'm basically a content creator of the fitness education variety. Like if like you understand this, Max, you know by the tone of what someone asks, whether they're actually interested or in those accelerators when they just basically want to like jerk each other off.
Yeah. Which is my favorite thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you still consider yourself a content creator because you're not putting out that much content. I've toned down my content.
We're retired, bro.
You've definitely toned down your content.
Well, I remember the conversation we had years ago where you said like basically you can't stop making content. Not you, but the general concept that you should be present. That I think is valuable advice and it is valid. For myself, it's simply because Max, the pandemic occurred, and I was looking at. Okay, the financial situation, what I want to do. My parents were getting older. I wanted to set them up. So I decided to double down on some business endeavors. But I still primarily view myself as a content creator.
I think I'm interested in finding out everything that you do behind the scenes because you and I go so far back. That's why not only was I excited because I think you don't do a lot. Well, I just learned that you have a podcast, Iron Culture, right? But it's down low.
I don't promote it. We don't talk about it.
I know you don't.
And it's very nerdy stuff.
Well, I didn't. I tried looking up, whenever someone comes on the show, I try to look up interviews that they've been on so I can maybe try to ask different questions or just see how they've answered questions and try to like find new things. But you haven't done a lot of interviews besides ones just like of you and your buddies' podcasts. Yep. And with this one, or what's the one with Mike?
It's not Mike, Mama's Boys?
Yeah, Mama's Boys, and then also...
The Powercast from back in the day?
No. Oh. Keep going. Powercast.
50% facts.
50% facts.
Yeah, well, we're just shooting the shit the whole time, like not actually finding about...
Which I don't know if y'all are filming that on an actual potato, but the video quality of that...
Iron Culture? Which one?
50% facts. I looked up some and I'm like, bro, what cameras? This is from the past 5 years. This looks like 2010. What is going on?
I'm on that lo-fi life, bro. But also, Max, to your point, like that's why I did want to come on this podcast, and I appreciate you inviting me, is I typically turn them down largely because I'm just not interested in talking about myself, but I do think we can have a productive conversation because we've both been in the space for damn near a decade.
Over a decade.
And we've been communicating and all those sorts of things. And I think it's interesting where the space has gone. And I will say, that's why I hate the old man yelling at the clouds. I'm actually very hopeful for the future. So that's why I did take a listen, and that's why I brought it up at the start to the podcast, all those sorts of things, your episodes, the various guests. And I thought, of course, because you're buddies with Christian, you handled it incredibly well. But I thought that was a very good episode, and I thought the Bumstead one I listened to as well.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'm done with compliments, by the way. That's the last one. So guys, timestamp it.
Count the rest of them because they're going to be on here. When Mona, when you were pulling up, and I was like, "Yep, there's the guy in the stringer out there. That's him." She was like, "Have y'all ever hung out?" I was like, "Yeah, we've met a couple of times. We lifted one time at the Fortis Fitness, right?
Yep.
In Canada a couple years ago." But I told her, I was like, Omar and I. We've been communicating via social media and YouTube for a decade now that I know that this episode is like, it's like we've been in chats every week because like we kind of grew up together in this social media world and we saw a lot of people come, saw a lot of people go, and have still we're one of the few that are still around, still making content, So I think it's going to be cool to dive into us.
100%. No, I agree, man. I would say it's yourself. So I will count myself as still producing content. Even though I've had many hiatuses over the last 3 years. But it'd be from that era. I predate you a little bit, but we're definitely in the same ballpark. Both of us. Christian, what would you say? Because he was making content. He's of our era. Would you say he's a little bit later or right in there?
He's before me.
Yeah.
Christian's making videos.
He started before.
Yeah, I've made more videos than Christian, but Christian started making videos before me, a year earlier.
Okay.
He came on the scene in 2012. I came on the scene in 2013.
Okay, yeah.
And when did you start?
So I technically started in 2009.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that was
like,
in your skin tight. I'm gonna put a picture on the screen of your skin tight, like football, like cut off white
spandex.
Whatever.
All the confidence in the world, none of the physique, nothing's changed.
None of the hair.
Yeah. If you want to hear something terrible, Max, is I had long hair in high school. And then I started my first job as a personal trainer when I took a little bit of time off from the university. And the very first manager took me aside and said, "Hey, Omar, if you want to be a little bit more professional, you should cut that hair."
He's completely right.
And I thought, oh my God, I really should be doing this, right? So I cut my hair. And I instantly regretted it. So that's why for the first, I was working at a big box personal training facility. I had short hair initially.
Does it suck going through like a gallon of conditioner every month?
Man, my hair is... I do nothing. So unfortunately, I wish I could say like if it was down, like it looks nice and all those sorts of things. It does take effort, and I'm a low effort guy. So nothing, man.
Like
nothing.
I know the girls that are listening and my girlfriend, it's always a process. She's like, God, I have to wash my hair today, and it's like getting the hair wet and drying it. It's like this. It's not just like I'm gonna go take a shower. It's like no. That's a special time. My hair has to gonna get wet. I gotta wash it.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you? I mean.
So I just learned the last month from my girlfrind the concept of
or could girls learn how to speed up their process from you?
No, they're going to be horrified by my process. Is that I found out about a wet brush, like a wet comb that you're actually supposed to use. So you're not supposed to, Max, like when you come out of the shower.
You just talk dirty to it?
So I rub it vigorously and it leads to frizz. So anyways, I do everything wrong, but I have like fine, medium fine hair. So it works out in the end. I don't have like poofy hair or like curly hair. And I never really styled it all that much because when I'm training, I did come down in 2013 to Texas where I did let it down. I typically keep it up. And because when I train, I like it to be kind of neat, low effort. Not a lot of work.
Medium fine hair, super fine.
That's what the hairstylists tell me. I don't know. Thank you.
Well, dude,
the flirting has begun, and we're only one shot in, and that's one of 10, by the way, because I know you could drink and I can drink as well.
The Canadians, they can drink, man. So your journey started a little bit before me on YouTube, but our synergistic time where we touched tips was October of 2013, because you were one of the couple that were out there that were at the time like one of the big dogs on YouTube, and I had just started on there. Yep. And what is the way that the small fry can get more views and more attention? I played part of in this challenge. Challenges were such a big part of the YouTube community back then when we were an actual community. When everyone would comment on everyone's videos, everyone would watch them because there's only like 10 or 15 of us, right?
100%.
And I challenged you to do the deadlift. Or I think you made the challenge, and then I responded, and then I made a different.
No, bro. Yeah, because I do remember this. I did talk shit about you to Candido privately about that. I'm like, who's this guy? Because I said, so the truth is, as you said, Max, so I went down to Florida, had a collab with a certain strength camp, and then went to Texas in July.
Wait,
and
Elliot has kind of gone.
You want to talk about it?
Down the path.
Let me just say that I saw and
anyone who
some
finds
things,
enlightenment. Omar doesn't.
Yeah. And what's that code for? It's like he's like, I don't think women should vote. I'm not saying like, let me say I'm paraphrasing, but I don't think that's that far away.
Is Elliot in the world of
like the manosphere or whatever?
Yeah.
The red. I have no. All I know, it's full of a lot of like kind of incels that need to get out and get some sun. Actually talk to women, respect them. Stop herking and jerking it, or maybe they're part of the no-fap crew. I have no idea, but like, I think you could agree on this very quickly, and we'll get back to that. That social media is its own weird like microcosm bubble that is in no way, shape, or form reflective of reality. Like meaning that you could get like hyper fixated on certain things that because your whole ecosystem of fellow enthusiasts are basically agreeing with you, you could start believing certain things that are almost untenable in reality. So the idea like, I'm not quite sure. I think I saw a clip where Elliot said that about like how women shouldn't vote. It's like, that's not actually what I said. And then it's a 5-minute video and he actually does say women shouldn't vote. That it part of it is marketing though. That what annoys me is that are these actually your convictions, or do you know that this is incendiary and thus it will be provocative, and we're all basically slaves to clickbait and to thumbnails and getting attention. And so you're essentially trading yourself, like your morals, in order to garner more attention. And that's the part I think that gets dangerous. I can't delineate between the two with some of these individuals. Do they believe these things, Max? or are they saying it, which is even more dangerous in a way?
You think off camera they're like, it ain't that fucking serious.
I love my mom. You know, like I said, I have no idea. But to get back to, yeah, man, so I traveled, and then I was, at the time, like, we accrued a following. I shout out my boy Candido. I remember you, the deadlift bra, because what was curious, I never thought, like, you joke about yourself. You joke too much about yourself, too much deprecating humor, self-deprecating.
Some people hate. Some people
that you
hate that I do the self-deprecating humor because they think it's. Some people look too deep into it and think that there's like you're actually so insecure that you're doing it as a defense mechanism. And I'm like, no, it's just like I like to do the Be Rabbit effect.
Sure, and I do think part of that could be compensatory to the space online, because what they don't understand, and you've participated just like me, is that we're held to such a high standard that even if you do have a good physique, the ratio of comments, especially if you have a video that does well, they will basically be trashing you, right?
Yeah.
So you read it and like you think to yourself, I have a good physique, whatever. And so you just put that as a pretext before you start talking about things to say like, hey, like I recognize it or whatever, or you're joking about it because you know your own self-worth. But it is something that doesn't get discussed. And one thing I'll say very quickly, Max, about that era, it kind of was like a lot of the comment sections would be a quasi like an Xbox Live scenario of like a game room chat, you know what I mean, where anything went. And so you would get a lot more vitriol just in general with people. And so at the time, speaking about this challenge, you know, I was always interested in strength training, athletic performance, those sorts of things. When I started deadlifting, man, and posting about it in 2011, people would tell me, you're going to snap your shit up, right? And they would say, you're compensating because you just can't build muscle, like whatever the case might be, right? And so you get all these wild comments, and then slowly, and people do not realize this from 2023, how things have been normalized, you know, like let's say flexible dieting, strength training as a means to attaining hypertrophy doesn't really matter. That we had a fight to normalize the concept that lifting heavy is cool, and lifting heavy does have some transferability over to hypertrophy. There's some caveats there, but we understand what we're saying. And so we were in the Wild West. So I saw you come up. I'm not sure. You can tell me because I kind of forget. I remember NWB, Nick Wright, right? Shout out to Nick Wright. So I think he gave you a shout out. He predates you. He had an interesting recent YouTube video where he gave his own timeline. Shout out to Nick.
Really good video.
Yeah. I like Nick, man. All met up, and we're going to speak about that later. I assume in 2018 Arnold's. But I think he shouted you out. I think you guys went to the same gym. When all that to say, Max, when you shouted out that challenge, and I do believe it was you that issued the challenge, I was aware of you. And I'm not sure if it was from Nick.
It was the 405
Max
for reps.
Yeah.
I hit 16.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever do it?
So I think I did, and I posted a video, but I half-assed it.
Well, you did, but so then I was like,
saw it.
this did it. This worked first time. Let me do it again. I did 500 pounds.
Yeah. For max reps?
I got 6.
What? So was that like a year later then, or?
I mean, I was just grasping for views at that point. So I was like, oh, the challenge worked. But I remember Candido did it.
Yes.
But his were like, clean, proper reps. Mine were like a fucking crack addict, just like ripping the ground, like weight off the floor.
No, mine were trash because I remember at the time I had like just a minor back thing, but the challenge was issued, no problem whatsoever. Mine were trash. People these days don't even remember the Candido era because he was from around, let's say 2013 to really 2017 relevant. He competed at Worlds in 2014. But to your point, he had at that time textbook perfect form.
Correct.
Yeah. It was something to behold.
He was almost like Russell has, I would say, textbook perfect form.
Yeah.
Like just the way that he executes the lifts, you're like, I don't make it look that easy.
That boy can lift.
He really, really can. So I think that comparison is actually pretty wild. But in that era, that's how our relationship started was the challenge thing, and that was trying to get really the good grace of the larger influencers or larger fitness people in the era at that time. I want to briefly discuss that period of time because just like Chris Bumstead talked about in the podcast, I would refer to it as the golden era of YouTube.
Yeah. Why
do you think we reminisce back to those when in reality, I would think now we're hopefully, more financially secure, have more kind of a structure in our life, understand what we need to do to keep progressing forward. Whereas then, I was just making YouTube videos for funsies, right? Yeah. But now when I look back to that, I'm always like, God, it was simpler times. Like I always remember that era.
Yeah, man. I have to think about it.
I'd call it we'll say 2013 to like 2017.
No, I actually know exactly what you mean. Maybe, so I'll quote a Guns N' Roses song, Right Next Door to Hell. Not bad kids, just stupid ones. We thought we would rule the world and getting used was having fun. Not sad kids, just lucid ones. Going through life, not collecting anyone. And then there's more from that. But I think there's an innocence. I think there's an innocence within us, because there were no real higher aims. A guy's a Christian, yes, he wanted to open a gym and so on and so forth. But we did it because we love to do it. Now there's all these mechanisms in 2023 to attain a larger following. There's a lot more what I'd say like hyper agreeability, where everyone wants to collab, but not necessarily in the way that we used to, where like I respected you. I respected your lifts, right? And so when we spoke to each other, we were of the same mind. And it felt like within our community, because at that time, there were still forums, there were magazines. We were basically what you could describe as counterculture. So it's almost like, I'll use another music analogy, like when grunge arose, and it was this new phenomenon.
Could you use Eminem?
Right. Oh, yeah. Lose yourself. So that we arose, and all of a sudden it was new for people, where you could be a natural athlete, you could be an individual, once again, that liked to lift, and there were many new things being discovered, many truisms that were uplifted or uprooted, where the idea of, remember 6 clean foods, 1 how to eat. Why do you think Max did 200, full day of eating, just to let people, but at the time
it was only a little over 100 actually.
Yeah, like let the record reflect. But I think you did, when you started it, this is what people don't realize. People were flabbergasted that you can eat like Pop-Tarts. Like this is, some of this sounds now, because they're generally accepted truths, that you can eat Pop-Tarts, and you basically show people what you're eating, and you're like, yeah, and I have abs. And people almost couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Like I remember a 3DMJ athlete, shout out to Alberto Nunez, where he's a natural athlete, I believe he's 100% natural, where he got called out for basically looking too good. And so it kind of, Max, was the Wild West.
Never happens to us.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, one time, if you remember, Max, that 3 out of 5 natural, the guy said he's really strong. His physique is good, but like, right? So he gave me a 3 out of 5 chance, which that person, natty or not, he basically called everyone out on steroids. And so to say 3 out of 5 chance he's natural basically meant I look like shit. So like, it's like kind of a compliment, kind of a backhanded thing. We'll take it. But I think there's an innocence, and I think everything that came from that era has become slightly redundant in the future, meaning that we explored all the different facets, right? So the idea of vlogging, right? Personal vlogging, so like Matt Ogus, then Christian Guzman, to you, to like informative content, myself, Alan Thrall, Johnny Candido, to any, like even bodybuilding shows, so again, like Chris Jones. You go through it, I think all the original concepts, the foundation is there, and so that which follows is an interpretation as such. And for us too, because we're very similar, I think within a year of age, we're at a point in our life too where we could dedicate that amount to it. So I think it's not just us. I think everyone that remembers from that era. But what was exciting about it is that it was new. There wasn't a pocket like that, so we participated in something to expand it to a certain form. And now people are entering it, Max, because they want to do it, right? People want, like there was a survey, a real one. Like, we're going to talk real studies here only, folks. A survey about people in the youth. It may have been in Canada. What do you want to do, right, when you grow up? And a lot of them said social media. Mm-hmm. So it's a very normalized career. People want to do this thing. When we did it, bro, you had a corporate job. It was viewed as being weird. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not that you lost your job, but you had to do it on the side, right? Like we were slightly ostracized. And so we were these people. I remember when I filmed in one of the gyms, it was a mom and pop gym. Now people want you to film in their gym because it's to their own benefit. But once again, they're like, you can't do that, right? Or can you come in at midnight? And so I think there was a beauty in its innocence before all kind of the overarching monetary incentives, social validation kind of entered. And it was much more, at least it felt to us, like a community.
Yeah. Why do you think that content was, I mean, I don't want to say that we, changed everyone's lives and made fitness into for like the simple person to understand, right? But that's what it was kind of for me. Yeah. We could make entire videos on, I would make a whole video on the importance of fiber, the whole video on creatine. Yeah. And I would watch me, Matt Ogus, everyone make the same video, but in their perspective. Yeah. Why do you think that content back then was needed?
Oh, because there's so much misinformation out there. I think we were battling a lot of the tropes from the magazines, because what people have to remember now is that there were heavy incentives to, promote certain supplements, certain misinformation. People weren't called out on their BS. I remember way back in the day, I will just say it was a popular online publication where it was a certain Alan Aragon that called out someone about flexible dieting or about the insulin load of a certain thing like, peri-workout nutrition. And they weren't used to it. And then he cited research. And then there were people on talk about the bodybuilding forums, bodybuilding misc, of guys like Eric Helms was on there. And they would talk about these things. And so you would have all these old heads. There's a lot of tradition when it comes to lifting. You shouldn't lift too heavy. Oh, you want to lose weight, you need to do higher repetitions that are not validated by science. And so a lot of us, what we're trying to do, we found what worked for us, or we found what actually was true in an absolute sense, and we wanted to disseminate it simply because we were so excited to share it. And I came from a personal training background, from an athletic background, from coaching people, from a little bit more sports performance. And when you talk to the average individual or the average gym bro, there were so many misconceptions and things being misconstrued that it felt like we had almost an obligation. And that's why our pocket, I'm not going to name some of the other people that were around at the time, but there were people, Max, that were kind of counter to what we're doing or were part of just the general narrative of, let's say, a lot of the things that weren't true. And that's what kind of united all of us. We were open. I learned along the way. It wasn't like in 2009, I was an advocate for flexible dieting. But I think we had an openness associated with us that allowed us to be malleable. And that's a very important trait. And so we had the best interests of the community at heart. At the end of the day, a lot of these things we're not really thinking about. It's just kind of happening. But I think that was the standard. And I think now sometimes, because a lot of the rocks have been uncovered, and so a lot of the general principles are understood. And so what we see creep back a little bit is a little bit sometimes more of the BS. So some people will talk about certain things, or you will see, because I think that which is sensational or novel is what gets pushed forth. We see individuals like the Liver King, which our people don't necessarily take seriously, but there are millions of people that follow him. So I think it's all those things kind of coalescing together.
It's actually pretty wild to think back of what is normalized now that was extreme back then. So for the listeners and viewers, there was a time, and I grew up this, and it's because we came from, just like my knowledge before that was watching Pumping Iron and reading, Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, that, you have to eat brown rice rather than white rice because it's going to literally change how you look. And, I need to have, if you want to eat cereal, I need to get the Wheaties that have no sugar at all because it will destroy my physique or whatever. And it was wild to see it unfold in real time and see people push against it and then change, because I think some of the earliest adopters of the flexible dieting, where they learned like, hey, and some people took it more of like, you're just trying to say you can eat Pop-Tarts all day. But like, no, we're taking the concept that you can eat Pop-Tarts. We're not talking about necessarily the health, and you need to obviously have a balanced diet, but you can eat Pop-Tarts as a carb, and your body will look just the same as if it was a cup of brown rice, right? Yeah. To an extent. And it was, I think like Matt Ogus was one of the first, and of all people that really pushed the envelope was Ian McCarthy. You haven't heard that name in forever.
Pop-Tarts. Shout out to Ian.
I'm going to call him what it was. It was this skinny white dude who, if y'all thought I didn't look like I lift, this man, I'm trying to paint the picture because he got
annihilated
by the Hodge twins, by everyone. Yep. Because he was like a nerdy looking kid that was like, hey guys, here's the science of why you can eat a Pop-Tart, and it blew people's minds, and they refused to believe it.
Yep.
And now I want to know if he's ever, I don't know what he's doing these days, but he should look back and be like, I told you, motherfuckers. I told you. Like what a wild time to be alive. We saw this unfold, man. Yeah.
No, we were at the foundation of all these things. And that's why it feels that way, because think about it. There'll never be another era like that of all this information being once again disseminated to the masses, being uncovered. It won't happen again, because now that it's generally accepted as being true, the way that people perceive it, like newcomers and so on and so forth, that era won't happen again. And Ian McPop-Tart, shout out to Ian, took so much flack. I have communicated. I've seen him on Facebook.
He was the shield with
the Pop
he's
Tarts, the
protecting
blueberry flavor.
Everyone's throwing shit at him, and the people are behind him, and Ian is holding up the shield. And I credit him to being like one who took the blunt of the attacks.
And you know why partially why we're doing this, Max, is I think it's important to properly remember what occurred. And because we were both there, we could both corroborate exactly what happened. And if someone was to look from 2018 backwards, they wouldn't even remember Ian. And one thing I do want to stress is how tenuous everything was. That we're fighting for this. Ian's getting just absolutely wrecked in the comments, right? Because of the way he looks. And there were those social signals. And that's why do you think you talk about it? I would joke about my no calves, the whole team no calves. I started that hashtag in 2012 because they would compare us to people that were enhanced, that were the de facto people individuals would follow.
Yeah.
Right? So when Ian said something that was sensible, and to the credit of the other side at the time, like the guy, I'm honestly blanking on the dude that said you only need 6 foods. Like, this might be a serious food problem right here. But he got destroyed just because with Ian was a little bit of aggressive with the way that he approached things, his social cues. And that was more important. Talking about debate tactics, Ian was on the side of science. The other individuals had personality, charisma, appeal to swollenness, where they looked big.
They were just like, look how good I look. Yeah. Look at you. You clearly don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's how the science was debunked. It was, oh, I understand. Yeah, your science, it's backed up by facts and a lot of research. Look at my fucking biceps. Look at you. Okay? Yeah. I eat broccoli and brown rice. Do you think you eat Pop-Tarts? Look at you. Look at me.
Yeah, 100%, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I hope that Ian is watching this podcast. I don't know what he's doing, man.
Well. I communicated with him a bit on Facebook a few years ago, and I hope he's doing well.
You know, speaking of Ian and a lot of other people, there were a lot of individuals that were in our era.
Yep.
Too many to name.
Yep.
But there's some that are still making content to this day, and some that have gone into other avenues.
Yep.
Why do you think? I'm talking about. Let's say the people that aren't making content.
Talk to me.
The Tony Doe.
Yeah.
Chelsea Lifts, Maddie Fusaro. I mean, relatively, Candido's very rarely putting out content. I mean, I know Brandon Campbell's still doing the in his basement Brandon now.
Yep.
Michael Corey has switched to owning a gym.
Yep.
Those people who most people probably will not remember watching them at that time because they maybe came onto YouTube later. Why do you think a lot of us that were around back then are still here doing the same thing, and some have, Thanos snap?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, man. I think the half-life of a fitness YouTuber that is creating more informative, let's say for lack of a better term, content, right? So content that's aimed at improving the life of the average listener has a much longer shelf life than your average YouTuber. Like, no one will remember, unless you're 30 plus, Fred from YouTube. You know what I mean?
Fred!
Yeah, right? You had to be there in 2007.
I just triggered a lot of people. There's no, I know you didn't say that.
They're like, who's Fred? So it happens like that, right? And so I think for us, most of us had a longer shelf life than the average YouTuber.
Yeah.
But I think what tends to happen with people is that, life happens, they get older. Is it financially feasible? And fortunately for us, and I do think some of it is sheer luck, circumstance, and a lot of people like to attribute just to ourselves, but I do for myself personally say, I think luck, timing plays a huge role, that we're able to do this and be financially comfortable with pursuing it. And not those people that you mentioned, Max, I'm not sure everyone's situation. It was hard at the time.
Yeah.
I think, I was working, I had a business. I was a personal trainer for 5 to 6 years. Working 50, 60-hour work weeks. When I started, I was a full-time trainer. I was actually a personal training director at a certain place. And I went down in 2012 to Los Angeles to talk actually not with fitness YouTubers, but actually with a media company that managed some actual YouTubers, guys like Daystorm. What was the Ray? Help me out. What was it the guy?
Ray Lewis Johnson? Ray Johnson?
The guy that made all the news videos with the backdrop, the general YouTuber.
Yeah, This Is 3.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Ray William Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. See? So anyways, met up with it and just asked, I was trying to assess the feasibility of this because no one was earning from YouTube or social media 6 figures, right? Or let's say a living wage. Toronto's an expensive city, kind of like New York, so it could vary. But anyways, so I went down and finally in 2013, after creating content for 4 years, I decided to quit my job. I had a like personal training business and then pursue it full time, launch the apparel, so on and so forth. And so I think the first probably assumption I would make safely is that for some, it becomes a financial concern. The second one, why they don't make content, interesting aside, shout out to Chelsea Lifts. I found out she left a comment. I haven't seen her in like 8 years.
She's recently reached out to me.
There you go, right? So I think almost it feels to me, Max, not that this is like a quasi high school reunion, not just us, but there's others like we'll get to it, like the passing of a friend. That it's weird because I think there is a place for all of us, but I think because we understand the form, like you had to make, as an example, let me ask you a question. To get 100,000 subscribers, how many years were you making content?
800,000. I know I hit 200 when to visit Michael Corey. I mean, years?
Yeah.
I mean,
years.
4
years.
Probably? Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Now you can do it in 2 days.
Yeah. Shout out to Lean Beef Patty. What I was going to say, the beef is, I was going to say that for us, I was talking with Alan Thrall about this. Because we had to do it for so long, we got used to the idea of something not doing well. And so a lot of the videos we would produce were kind of passion, more oriented projects. And so all that to say that I think for some of the people, they would get a little bit of a burnout because you're not getting that feedback that you're looking, that feedback, the positive interaction. You produce content year after year. You see some of your like alumni that are also producing content, doing better. I'm not saying that's what happened to them, but you know, we all generally get older. And I think there is such a thing, and I've done a terrible job of this. I honestly don't know why for like the content succeeded and everything. And I'm incredibly thankful to everyone that watched it. I think because it was information based and that never ages. I think the frills of it, the production were never fantastic. I'm like the lo-fi guy, you know, like a technical Luddite. But I think for some of those people, it was just feasibility, not adapting to the time, or shout out to Michael Corey, like what people don't know, because if you don't report it, Max, on social media, it doesn't exist. I know he has a successful gym.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
Bro, he's doing well. Like he's actually doing well. And so I think for a lot of us, which is cool, it's interesting, we could leave at some theoretical point, and maybe that's a future topic, social media behind. Not that one must do that, but they could do it comfortably because they're okay with what they did, the impact that they had, and they moved on. So I think there's a variety of other factors. I think for some of us, such as you and myself, we enjoy the pursuit. Like I do view you as a content creator. Like you film all your own stuff, you edit all your own videos, you have a clear direction. There is something inside that's a form, and it is an act of creation and of being a creative. I think some people focus the big C when they say content. They're looking at that which will get them the most amount of views. And you're thinking, oh, this would be interesting. And I think the two lenses are entirely different.
I think back then, to kind of wrap up the golden era here, is the difference of now back then is, now we're making money from content, and back then you wouldn't even it wasn't like, oh dang, I didn't make any money from this video. You were just like, oh, I make videos, that's what I do, right?
Yeah.
And now the amount of stress and frustration and even a little bit of like depression when things don't do as well as you think. But when I think back then, not only am the views getting light years more than I was in 2014, right? I was getting 3,000 views.
Yeah.
But you just kind of were like, I upload videos. They all do relatively similar. You don't really analyze the views, and you just know if I keep doing this, my channel will keep growing. My views are averaging 5,000 in 8 months. They're going to average 10,000, and in another year they're going to average 20,000. Whereas you didn't stress about it.
Yeah.
And the last question I'll ask you about that era is, what do you feel about
what happened to Low Carb Corey? Is that what you
who's Low Carb? I don't know if I remember him.
Oh man, this guy, I think Tim. Do you remember?
And I was in the know.
Yeah. Yeah. So he.
Tim's also someone. Tim Thibodeau is also someone who gave up on
the
YouTube content.
I was going to say that Low Carb, not to get into this, I forget why he got his channel deleted.
Oh shit! No, I don't know.
So he was like on the fringe. Anyways,
Okay.
yeah, he was on the. Yeah, I think he was there for he may have been 2013. That's why. Go on, sorry. Yeah.
And I'm someone who I consume a lot of content.
Yeah.
I've been consuming content since I started on YouTube, or even beforehand, and I watch a lot of people. So when I don't know someone, it bothers me. Yeah. Do you feel any type of way of, let's say I was in the era of YouTube that you were in, and at the time I was essentially making videos very similar to you, of where 90+% of it focused around fitness, whether yours are more scientific tips and mine were more the average gym bro, my version of it without any science backing or technicality to it, all about fitness, all about advice, nutrition, ways to improve the fitness community. And at a certain point, I've obviously shifted away from that. And that is where I was able to find growth. Do you think it's like is it doing like a disservice to the fitness world where like, hey, why didn't you just stick with like providing value rather than just making videos? Like I went from making videos about providing value and information to look what I'm doing.
Sure.
Look at the shit I'm doing, where you're someone who is I make videos to help people, to inform people. There's some entertainment in there as well, but the main purpose of the content isn't about look what Omar's doing in his world. Look at the shit that I bought. Look at my new bathroom in my house. It's about, hey, here's how to progress in what you're doing in the fitness and health and nutrition world.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's my personal vocation. It's what I enjoy and I get inner fulfillment from. And so that's why I do it. And that's why I'm at a point now, Max, the 2023 comeback or whenever it will be of when I'm actually producing content. I'm at a point where I could just make what I want. Yeah. And so it's a liberating feeling. But I do like the idea of always giving something tangible. So I think participating in the culture, which is something both of us did, can be impactful and powerful. So traveling around, talking with strong people, and also sharing those experiences and that information. It's the pocket I'm most comfortable in, one, because I'm a very private individual, but also because I would say some of the most impactful things to me, I was recently at Sheffield, so like the big like powerlifting meet that now in America, it wasn't a big deal, largely because the USA PL split from the IPF. Boring, long story, but it was the best of the best around the world that competed. And some of the most impactful stuff, there was the head of SBD, like Taiwan, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, and then Colombia, that all came up and said they wanted to get like the photo, this and that. These are people that are about that space, and I know what space I'm in and who I want to communicate with. And it's like shout out like Dr. Patrick Close or like Mila Wolf, like some of these like young guns getting into the evidence-based community, where they said, I used to watch your content. Is that I think if I'm participating in this space, what I can do best is communicate, complex topics in a more digestible format, and that's kind of my niche. So that's why I do it, and that's what I enjoy, right? Like that was in school, some of the things that I was pursuing. So I think for yourself, I don't think you've abandoned anything. I think for you are authentically pursuing what you want, and I think what would be dishonest on the other hand, and you spoke about it, we talked about it a little bit off air, pursuing powerlifting or when your heart's just not in it because you do have other larger ambitions. And so that is a phase or a part of your life. And I think acknowledging that rather than staying in that moment and trying to relive certain glory days, let's say, like, producing more fitness content, would actually do a disservice either to yourself or to the community, because eventually you do get jaded or tired or like, man, I've made jokingly the 200, full day of eating videos. But I will say about you that I think with guys like yourself or Christian, the world is potentially your oyster, where because you've had to learn all these skills and people don't realize this, that modern content creators can get someone to film things for them. You've learned everything, how to shoot, how to edit. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you had the ambition to do more, you can, and that is something potentially that you can do. It's all about what you want to do.
I think the biggest reason of why I left making videos about solely fitness, and it really ties into, if you'll notice, I'm one of the few individuals in the fitness scene, even though I still consider myself in the fitness space. Yep. I never, besides a collaborative program I came out with Kaizen, I take that back. There was like 3 people I did online coaching with, and I canceled it after like 2 months. But I never came out with a deadlift program. I never came out with a training, coaching. I never did any of that. And the amount of money I probably left on the table, and the reason I never did that was because I felt it would be almost dishonest, because yes, I increased my deadlift a whole lot, right? But I used other people's programs and whatever, and I would tweak minor things about that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, hey, Max, take me how you increased your deadlift. I could have charged people $5, $10, whatever, and they would have liked that because it's coming from me. They're like, I don't care about the science behind it. But I always thought that because I don't really understand the technicalities of what I'm discussing, why I'm doing certain rep ranges, why I'm doing the exercise that I'm doing to accessorize my deadlift. I just was like, this is what worked for me. I didn't feel like I had the right to charge people for knowledge when there were so many other individuals that were properly explaining it, because I was like, no, I just the weight just goes up each week. I don't fucking know, right? And I feel like I'd lying, almost making it sound like I'm smarter than I was. And that's almost where there's so many individuals like yourself, like Candido, like Jeff Nippard, like all these people who your fitness content was truly informative, where mine was just a gym bro who would give his personal takes. And I almost felt that my personality was the biggest value that I could provide to people. And that's why I decided to kind of just lean that way and go more about like, hey, I'm still going to give you the fitness and whatnot, but I think you guys are actually here for I don't think you're actually here for my fitness. Like that's what it is. Like it's always gonna be part of my life, but let me leave the fitness to the actual professionals. Let me leave the programs to the professionals, and I'll just give you guys entertainment. Yeah. And that's why I transitioned out of fitness, really.
Well, I think there is something authentically, like I said, in terms of what you're doing, where you are adjacent to that space, Max, because you experiential, training and what you're doing, like the knowledge that you accrued from doing those things and you conveying it to your audience is real. And I think recognizing where you are and what you're trying to talk about is very important. So I think, like, let's take a 2023 social media person. And I've seen, all these trends kind of come back full circle, where there's been a movement among some people. There are some individuals, I won't name them but you see them.
We've already talked shit about a lot of people, dude.
Let's go. Well, let's talk about them. The Trend Twins, as they're called. Have you heard about them?
I
have them. You got them?
Just very recently heard about them, because actually someone was like, Max, like the Trend Twins are here at Alpha Land. Yeah. And they were like,
that will be a conversation with probably the vocabulary of 7 words.
Well, I don't know anything about them. And I don't know if this comes off like as rude, but someone said, Max, you should get them on here. But that's someone like, I don't want to platform someone who very blatantly the Trend Twins. Like I'm anti-steroids. Like I'm in certain situations. But like I think promoting it like this younger generation, I have a problem with that. That's not of different views or opinions. I think you're endangering the health of people, right?
Oh, Max, that's why. You're the Anakin, bro. I'm the Qui-Gon Jinn, where I've always seen potential. Where I do, but like,
is that a Star Wars reference? I don't watch Star Wars.
No,
you said Anakin.
This guy, what a guy. Let me give you a Dumb and Dumber reference.
There
Okay,
you go.
We're Harry and Lloyd. We're going on an adventure. We're going to Aspen. All right. And at the end, Swanson, Samsonite.
Right. It's on the briefcase.
It's not going to happen. At the end, we're going to be fooled, and then we're going to get an opportunity at the end that could totally change our life, and we're just going to turn it down.
But we're gonna lube up a bunch of girls, but we're gonna point them to the other direction. Okay.
Wrong direction. Beautiful end. Actually, it is probably Jim Carrey's best comedic film. It is a classic. What I was going to say, think about that though, and that's why I mentioned about like fresh and like fit or whatever about platforming.
You could argue, are they hurting people? Yeah, I get it, but
I do think like we understand that there's a moral obligation because we're looking at the next generation and what you just said. So you're not anti-steroid, and neither am I. I'm like personal use. You do whatever you want at your own discretion. However, I think if you're being impressionable to a younger generation, you're doing them a disservice if you don't discuss it properly. And I think not just them, I'm talking generally now, you're normalizing and condoning, once again, certain behaviors that could be dangerous. And so you understand that, right? Yeah. Because you're in the fitness space, you get that. And I think what you just said about yourself is partially true, but also not, man. Just in the sense that the full day of eating videos, your programming was always sound, right? You spoke about your love of like 531. Is that you would want to be up to date.
You hate 531, don't you?
It's
I love Jim Windler 531.
It's a perfectly fine program. But the idea is that you wanted to do the best training program for yourself, correct? Mm-hmm. You wanted to follow the best nutrition program within reason to fit your lifestyle. So you always were trying to be science, once again, adjacent. So something that you were doing that was sound by the information we had. Now, contrast that to some of the culture that we see. So either doesn't matter, those individuals, or I see there has been a slight regression towards certain training styles, let's say more training to failure. And if you take a look at the research, once again, like this is one of those interesting things where there's the gym bro kind of truism, and I think there's an element of masochism of like self-harm where you want to prove how hard you're training. Yeah. But I think for some people, because these things have become generally accepted as being true, they almost want to do things, say some outlandish things, be kind of reckless because they know it will get them attention. And for some of these 16, 17-year-olds, what do you think the appeal is of someone like an Andrew Tate that is saying something where they don't have like their brain isn't even fully formed, especially for young men until they're like 25. So they're just listening to this stuff like, oh my God, he's right. And you understood, being a content creator, that obligation. So I do think there was a very important quality, a service that you provided and other people by doing the damn thing and then also documenting it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on two things because we kind of, we discussed two things that I wanted to get to at one point. I'll let you choose. Would you rather this go into, because I have a whole thing I want to talk about steroids and natural versus enhanced, or the death of my powerlifting, because we discussed all that.
I'll let you choose, man. I know you told Mona, shout out to Mona, you said it's going to be a 50-minute podcast. So I let you lead.
No, we're going to keep it going.
You said 35 minutes and 30 seconds. Come in and tell me that there's a disaster with sour strips at 35 minutes. So I'll let you lead.
Normally I would never ask the guest what they want to discuss on. Well, so before this episode started, you had mentioned that you saw my Instagram story recently discussing my shelving of powerlifting.
Yeah.
And this has been something I've kind of like had a battle with for a pretty long time about like my future with powerlifting, because I was never a competitive powerlifter. I was a powerlifter. I liked training strong. I liked deadlifting a lot of weight. I liked hitting PRs, and I would occasionally compete.
Yeah. But
in no way at any point in my entire life did I decide I wanted to try to compete in powerlifting at an elite level, do all these competitions. I joked, but I was serious, that I would only do competitions that are relatively close to my home because I don't want to get on a plane to go powerlift.
Yep.
I'm not going to travel long distance to go powerlift because I don't care.
Yep.
And I've recently hit a point, and I don't know if it's because I tried going for a meet very recently with Joey Flex,
Yep.
where my training was going excellent, and then just towards the end of the training, I know from someone who's been in strength training a long time how my training should go. Yes. Like, I know how it should be going. I know how the weights should be moving, and they're just not there anymore. Yeah. And I've kind of come to the realization that I think that I really have gotten to my peak strength potential unless I completely put an emphasis on training like I did when I was hitting PRs all the time. Yeah. But with my life now, I don't think that I can put the same effort. And I get a lot of pushback on that of saying, oh my God, it's just because you can't hit a PR, that's what you're using as an excuse, whatever. And my mindset is, like, I think once you get to these certain levels at a body type like mine, there's a wall that you hit. And I think going from 500 to 600 on a deadlift is one thing, but going from 600 to 700 is a completely different thing. And I think people that are saying like, Max, you suck, you're making excuses, are maxing out at 520 right now. Yeah. And when they get to 650 like me, they'll completely understand when they, because these are the same people that are talking, oh my God, Max, you've made a 5-pound PR in your deadlift in 3 years. Congratulations. I'm like, guys, you hit a wall, a wall.
Yeah.
And now my mindset with training is, I'm thinking about other things. I have stresses. I have, employees. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in overhead a month. Like my world back when I was crazy progressing was gym, eat, sleep, drink shots.
Yeah.
So I think I'm actually like retiring from powerlifting. Like I think I don't have an interest in it because I think I hit the pinnacles, 330 or 335 bench, 650 deadlift, 500-pound squat.
Yeah.
I'm like, what other achievements do I need to hit in the sport for me to be proud of myself?
Yeah. All right, Lloyd, we'll go to Aspen. I think
Omar's like, listen up, you pussy.
I think you're self-aware, and I think your points are valid. I'll ask you one question before I give my thoughts, and that is, I saw your video where you said, guys, I'm stressed. And I think the truth be told, there are some people where it fits them like a glove. So I think Christian was always business oriented, and it fits him in terms of his pursuits. He could do it. He could do it well. And like with sour strips, I'm sure you're doing a very good job. But I mean, do you find for yourself with all these new responsibilities and obligations that you kind of have an underlying chronic stress where you're always thinking about these things because you have to make a lot of these choices. They don't understand that you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of overhead. If you make some errors, like it could go not belly up, but it could be kind of disastrous. Do you think one of the largest factors, before I share my thoughts, is because of how, let's say, tied up you are with other obligations that you simply put didn't have maybe a decade ago, specifically running a large scale business and trying to grow a company that probably occupies a lot of mental space? Is that part of it or what?
It is, and I think the argument would be like, well, you should just delegate everything off your plate so you can focus on training. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to kind of go back. And I almost think, is there more honor in sticking to someone who sticks to powerlifting and will never hit the numbers that I hit, but doesn't give up like I do, but will never hit the numbers that I've hit when I'm already like to what I've achieved. Like I'm proud and satisfied of the numbers that I've hit. So it's like I'm getting to the point where I understand the realistic potential of how much I'm going to be able to lift.
Yeah.
The numbers will not always go up. I am not a world elite power lifter. And it's like, if someone's on the journey for their entire life, but they've never gotten close to what I've done, there's people out there that will continue to power lift and be dedicated way more than me that will never hit above a 600-pound deadlift. Does that mean I'm just like way superior? And like, I already beat the game, dude.
Yeah.
Like I beat the game.
Yeah.
You're still playing. You can't get past the boss.
Yeah.
Why do I still got to play?
I think one of the tonics we've been talking about and kind of circling around it is perspective, right? We have a lot of years in the game.
Yeah.
And I think for yourself, because you've done the damn thing for so long, you're kind of aware in terms of the mental commitment. It will take the physical commitment of your body. Where your ceiling is theoretically, because you can always get a little savvier, try new training tricks. And like you mentioned, Joey Flex, for those unaware, he's a world-class coach. So you're training with someone, you have a coach that basically you have top tier programming. It's about your execution. It's about your ability to give that energy. And I was and am in a little bit of a similar situation in the sense, and I'm speaking to somewhere the number one armchair enthusiast, someone who actually hasn't competed. There is research behind this where they showed some psychology research of kids and their motivations, and the study was related to them drawing, and then they were given financial incentives to do these things or rewards for doing the drawing. So either they could draw of their own volition because they enjoyed doing it, and then they changed the reason behind the outcome of what they would get. And I think when we focus too much on, and what they found is that those that then it was tiered or tied to something else, some sort of external goal, over time, they were less likely to continue it. So what does that mean exactly? And what we'll tend to notice, Max, like people don't even remember these names, but let me name a few of them. And I'm not saying this is their case at all, but they've completed that quest, right? Their journey, like Brett Gibbs, shout out Brett Gibbs. I know he has like an elbow situation, a bunch of other things. Brett was an unstoppable force in 2014, 83 kg lifter. I think he has 3 or 4 world championships. He's no longer powerlifting, right? We have this survivorship bias. There's the graveyard of people who no longer participate, and thus they're not vocal in terms of their experiences. And I think there's a pressure by obviously the fans because they see you as an avatar, right? So they want to look up to you. You're aspirational to them. Oh, I want to own a business. I want to do this. I want to do that. And that's entirely understandable. But I think what you're hinting at right here is that the amount of energy it would take for you, the juice is not currently worth the squeeze. But I don't think you want the motivational pep talk. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a binary choice for you. And what I mean is that I think it is perfectly fine to put it on a hiatus for now because you are aware in terms of how much it will take from you. And for myself, I took 3 years off YouTube, right? I over the last, since 2020 to 2023, you know me, I was uploading maybe 200 videos, right? We stopped. That's the crazy part. As I stopped, well, things were still like going fine. I was getting 2 to 3 million views a month or like whatever the case might be, right, from those videos. And I think over the last 3 years, if I would release 200 videos each year, I uploaded 40 in the last 3 years, right? So it's about 1/5 over a 3-year span. And that was a sacrifice that was necessary in order to grow my own business because I would say that for me, I'm not someone that it's a natural fit. I'm much more of a creative person. I'm a much more content-oriented person. But like I said, I had some financial incentives, some family things that I wanted to make sure people were set up. And as a result of that, actually, my training took a bit of a backseat. Weirdly enough, man, the pandemic was one of my best times because everything kind of shut down. So my workout a lot more simpler, right? I wasn't uploading nearly as much content and I could train. And that's when I hit like a squat PR, an overhead press PR, like all these sorts of things because I could just get back. And it actually was my best training block those 8 or 9 months since 2015 or 16. So it just shows you that you can still do the thing, but it's because we have all these obligations. And my question for you, that's why I don't like the finality of the concept of like retiring. I get it, like to move on, but I think the general process of self-improvement can manifest itself in different ways. And when we become too attached or tethered to the end outcome, if we don't achieve it, we become dissatisfied. And if you remember the deadlift bra, yes, you liked making the videos and like hitting the PR and that adrenaline rush, which people that pursue strength can definitely relate to. You feel that idea that everything you've done has culminated in terms of one thing, one moment, and you feel amazing. It's not the only thing. And so I would say it's maybe not right now, but I'm not sure if it's not right forever. And I think for yourself, like the common thing people say, and I know you like being a lean bean, fighting machine, is that moving up in weight, like I don't think necessarily that is the case, but I do think knowing you and how explosive you are, because I think you're an explosive individual, like your deadlift is why it's your top lift. I think down the road, you could probably squeeze out a few more pounds. Do you want to go through that journey? Entirely up to you. I think what's most important is to understand the why you do it in the first place and that it's facilitative to the rest of your life, right? Like you like to lift because for your mental health, the way you feel, the way you look. It's not an either or like, oh, I'm never powerlifting and I'm going to stop lifting. A lot of the people, top tier athletes at the elite level, once they stop, like sports players, basketball players, football players, they stop playing like recreationally basketball because it was always attached to an end outcome. And I think we can never lose that genuine passion for what we did. So if it takes time for you, man, to reset, walk away from powerlifting, kind of just do some general things, work it out internally, let it just settle within you and find out what you want to do. And maybe in a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, because you're still well within, I'd say you have the next 10 years to decide. After that point, Max, I don't know.
You're too fucking old.
There is a theoretical point.
Bro, my joints are hurting these days,
so
man.
you said that, and I remember like that's why you were joking when there's people. I saw the one with shout out to the beef, Patricia, where you said don't get past 30. And like, I know like the aches and pains. I can relate to some of them, but I think some of it is just everything outside of that. The biopsychosocial model of like kind of pain. So like your nutrition, your sleep. Like I can only assume with the work. I look at Christian. I'm like, this is a guy that doesn't sleep.
No, I sleep like 9 hours a night.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You're I got the best nutrition. I got the best sleep. My body's just broken, Omar.
Well, like with Brett, Joey Flex, it was weird because I had the best training in the world. I was eating all the food, all of it, and I was still really not hitting it. And something you brought up that I haven't really thought about was it's almost like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it actually make a sound, right? I think a lot of the reasoning that I pushed myself so much over the years was because of YouTube. Mm-hmm. And when I hit a PR, I wanted to rush home, 565-pound deadlift PR, upload. Yep. Like, it's just a clip. And the dopamine I'd get from that, because it was like this community, and like, it was like, me and my friends are racing. But now, no one I hang out with does powerlifting. Right. So if I do powerlifting, I either need to make a completely new circle of friends, or I need to go lift in the corner by myself, which is no fun, right? The amount of time it takes to powerlift is a lot more than time to get in and do a back and bicep workout, right? Yeah. But also I don't make content around that anymore. No one really wants to see that. So it's like it's not something, it's almost like I'm gonna hit a PR and no one's gonna care. And I don't care anymore, because does deadlifting 650 or deadlifting 675, will deadlifting 675 make me any happier than me just deadlifting knowing that I've hit 650? Sure. I like to think of sometimes the deadlift, this is the last thing I'll say on this. It's like, have you ever skateboarded?
Once.
Okay. Let's just I'm going to paint a picture for you. Sure. Let's say there's a 30 stair, massive, huge, just like my penis, huge staircase.
Odd segue, but we'll go with it.
And that
shot's finally hidden, isn't it? It took 30 minutes.
And there is a skateboarder, and he's been trying for so long to do an advanced trick, let's say a 360 flip or something, down the staircase. Yeah. For months and months and months, a year. Falls, breaks an ankle, recovers, comes back, keeps trying, fails. the one time you hit it, he doesn't do it again.
Yeah.
He's like, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've achieved it. I don't need to do it again. I don't need to do it even bigger. Like, I've done the damn thing. It's almost like I think I've hit the achievements that I want to in strength, and I love fitness, but I don't think getting stronger on the 3 lifts will bring me any more happiness. And I think a lot of times I was thinking that if I don't get stronger, everyone else is going to think that like I'm letting them down. Like, I have to keep motivating other people to strength train, so I have to get stronger.
Yeah.
And I think that is what is in my head. Like, if I don't strength train, I'm letting other people down. But in reality, I'm like, I don't care if I squat more than 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I really do not care.
Yeah. No, Max, I think that is a fair perspective, and I think it's better than doing the opposite, grinding something out that your heart isn't in, which will actually just build up maybe a resentment towards it, and then a lack of maybe pursuing it once again in the future. Let's talk about that for a second with you. This is going to be called the Max Intervention episode. Mm-hmm. But for yourself, where you said you feel like you'd be letting people down, and then you did tell me years ago the whole concept that you feel like you can't stop making content, or the idea, and you said it in the Christian episode, that not that people would disappear. Like, where does that stem from? And what do you think that is with you? Because you've created content for such a large period of time, you've accrued a large following. The people will be there if, let's say, hypothetically, you're taking a content break. And I do think this, like, transitioning to a podcast format, especially, how savvy of you. Like, your audience is getting older, they listen, all that stuff. You're on it. But that you could take a break. What is it about you where you feel like this obligation towards the people that, like, either they'll maybe stop following you, or like it's like a betrayal to them, or the idea that if you stop making content, people will stop watching if you come back. You've seen Christian, kind of do the opposite. Like, what do you think that is within you? Because I think what's interesting, these external motivators can be strong to get you to a certain goal. Some of the world-class athletes, Max, like I was just at Sheffield, not all of them are like, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my own personal betterment. They're like, I want to kill everyone. Like, people have different motivational pathways, right? So what do you think that is about yourself? Because I think those two are intrinsically tied together.
I think with the fitness thing, or making content, and around in the fitness industry, is I think I've seen so many people come and go, and the excuses that they'll have of why they can't make videos is they'll say, like, I'm so busy doing X, and I compare it to what I'm doing and go, I'm doing a lot of things and I can still make videos. Like, I think you're making an excuse, and I think you're just leaving people in the dust because you're just lazy. Yeah. And I value what people think of me, and I take pride in making videos for so long and being consistent and not taking breaks. Why do I care so much? I don't know. I mean, I always hate when people go like, I don't need to make YouTube videos. I can still, make money. It's like, bro, the only reason you can do that is because you make videos. Like, sure. I think it's almost like a duty to the people that like helped get you there to keep doing it, like, and for forever. Yeah. Like, I don't think it's right. Do
you feel shackled, Max, a little bit by
that? The golden handcuffs. No, but I love to do it. Like, I think it'd be wrong if I like made YouTube videos for so long and because of making YouTube videos, I was able to build a business off of the back of the thing that making YouTube videos. And now because I have this thing, I can be like, fuck you, YouTube, don't need you anymore. Ha. I can make all this money there. I think it's like I think you're leaving for a hotter girl. And it's just like of a great girl that's been there for you, and just because this other I think you should. I'm a monogamous man.
A monogamous content
creator. I'm in it.
The YouTube like a YouTuber ride or die. It's interesting. I think so. A few of the things I've observed, or at least my impression of you, I think you're a creative individual. Like, I think in terms of the direction, in terms of the content and how you make it. You have all these thoughts, you want to make it interesting. I think you are within a box, like a framework you've established for yourself, and like where you see yourself and what you want to do. And I do wonder, like, when we talk about longevity, or we talk like a temporal timeline now in terms of where you're in 5 years, 10 years, in terms of what content you'll be producing and what you'll be making, that sometimes, like, in a certain way, it could be liberating not to hold anyone's opinion other than yourself or people closely associated with you. Like that's what I feel. Like one of the best things that I ever discussed with, shout out to Alan Thrall, the homie himself, is that he said, I produce, because he's in his own phase now, Max, where he has his own gym. He has a family. I could tell he's a phenomenal father. He's just that guy. And he has a gym that's doing quite well. And so now he makes content only when he feels like it and only when he's passionate about it. And because you can't fake that, right? He clearly, because he puts the attention and detail necessary to produce content to a particular level that will resonate with said audience. And you can't kind of fake that. It's something that comes from within. And so I think my only question with you regarding all that and like how you want to pursue, like what you want to pursue and how you need to keep making content is if it's not potentially long-term limiting you from discovering other avenues or other ways to either express yourself. Like I obviously haven't gone on TikTok, and I'm not saying TikTok's the final frontier or short form content, believe me. But I am saying just with yourself where you have been doing something similar. And I see it also like with Christian or a lot of people from our generation. And one of the things that I think is that which has got us here will not get us, if we aspire to be at a higher level, let's just say hypothetically, rather than where we are, what got us here might not necessarily get us either to the next level or might not be the vehicle for the future. And I'm just talking out loud, man, because I took the 3 years and that sabbatical. Like I uploaded, 50 how to squat videos, and I enjoyed every single one of them because guess what? The way I looked at it, I was a high school teacher, right? You come into the class, you watch the video, you read the title, you want to learn from it, great. If that doesn't apply to you, you already know how to squat, move on, right? It's like, it's a lesson. And so I took 3 years, and now I do genuinely feel rejuvenated from taking that time, and I have all these ideas. Now, whether or not I'll execute it remains to be seen, but I can say it personally has benefited me because I do think a lot of us have parallel experiences. You, myself, Christian, right? There's a reason why for that. We all kind of came up from the same era.
I think I'll get off talking about me, but I think
this is better for me actually.
I think I get in my head a lot about where I am and what I should be doing, and I think that if I don't make YouTube videos, and again, like I think you can hopefully people can tell my videos like I don't deadlift, squat, and bench right now because I don't want to, right? I make YouTube videos because I want to. I'm not doing it because I am feeling forced into it. Like, do I feel that if I left, I would be letting some people down? Yeah, but I also want to make these videos. And I look at it as like, what would I do if I didn't make YouTube videos? And the argument would be like, well, you could put more time in your business. I'm like, guys, like the YouTube isn't like, I'm not like, wow, I really needed to get this done in the business today to level it up. Yeah. But I think I had to make this YouTube video. I'm so good at making, not like good of like my shit's so, my shit's so awesome, but like I'm talented enough to make my level of content at a very easy brain power that it doesn't, my videos are 15 minutes. Yeah. Like I don't think about them ahead of time. I just vlog. I'll think of little concepts and I'll go a little out of my way, but in no way does my YouTube impact my ability to run my businesses. Sure. Not even 1%. Yeah. And people would argue, be like, no, it does a little bit. Like, no, it doesn't. If anything, I'm moonlighting running these businesses, So I don't know, man. I just love making videos.
That's good though. I think just like with the lifting, the passion should always remain there. And I think it's good you could compartmentalize. For myself, the best ideas come at like 2 a.m. when you're unwinding and when you have to get up the next day because you have to put in the next order or so on and so forth. And it's something that is kind of incongruous with who you are. So once again, different personality types where I think someone like a Christian can get up and he's jazzed about it, right? He's like, oh my God, I'm creating the new the different you know what I mean?
This girl's asses are gonna look so good.
I saw a story where he posted and he said, like, guys, we sorted like the website. I'm like, cool. And I saw there's literally like 200 different leggings. I'm like, so all night he's just on there, working on it. I'm like, is this like when you were 13, Christian, and you're like rocking on that guitar, doing that 1-4-5, right? Is this what you envision for yourself in the future? Not in a negative way, but like we all fall, I think, into the roles that we either want or that we think that we can do. Mm-hmm. And so I do think like for yourself with content, you enjoy it, you enjoy the process. My final question for that is, what do you think the future is then for you for that? Because you have lamented a little bit. When we say views, let's talk about it in a grand scheme of things. Like it's within what you would call for sure an acceptable range. But like anything else that we pursue, if you're pursuing lifting, like, right, you deadlifted 650. If you're deadlifting 585, like, it's okay, but it's definitely not 650.
No, I've never compared. Yeah. I've never compared my views to YouTube, and this is actually a perfect analogy for people to wrap their head around, because they'll still be like, well, Max, you're still getting views. Because people get annoyed when I talk about views, which is interesting, because I'm sure it comes off as complaining, but I'm like, hey, as the creator of something, I'm not allowed to talk about the performance of it. That's a public thing, right? My views now are like me going into the gym and deadlifting 315.
Yeah.
Just over and over again.
Yeah.
I can deadlift 500. Yeah. No problem today, right now. First with two rep warm up. Like, so it's like, why am I going to get excited to deadlift 315 all the time? Mm-hmm. And that's like kind of where it's at. So it just kind of bothers me. I'm someone like, I've definitely accepted like it is what it is with the views, and I just, get in my head, because just in reality, when someone starts something, no one ever wants to see a dip in performance. It just, because you're like, I'm the shit, right? I'm so cool. No, these videos are cool. But whatever the audience is that's sticking with me, the future of my YouTube is definitely like, the content that I make is absolutely sustainable for me to continue to do this into the foreseeable future.
Right.
Like, there is nothing about because of the type that if I try to do a different type of content, whether it be extremely informative, sit down, research topics, crazy editing, or these challenge whatevers, I can't do that.
Yeah.
If it's like, hey, I'm going to vlog, I'm going to give you updates on what I'm doing, I'm going to mix in some humor. If you want to follow along in my life, I can do that with ease, no problem, every week, no problem.
Let me put it this way, man. The immortal Akira Kurosawa, the Japanese director, he attempted
I'm having him on next week.
Well, that's interesting because it'll be his bones. But is that he said he had attempted suicide after the reception of one of his movies, where it didn't do, I think it was Dersu Uzela, that or the previous film. But anyways, the point is that he viewed it partially as a rejection of himself, but it also had greater implications, like financial ones, where he wouldn't be greenlit for future projects he wanted to make. And it's all about the thing that he produced. I do think part of it, probably what it feels like for you, is a rejection in a certain way of just like the views of what's occurring. But one thing I could say is, like I said before, and I bring this up, is I think you're a talented creator. I do think it is possible, if that is the goal, to grow the audience again. I think just the form, like the framework of what you've done, and as you said, it's very easy for you, but like on the opposite side of comfort is growth. That for you, like whatever you attempt to do, like one of the things I thought of in the future for myself would be like jokingly, like whatever, not the fitness tour, but like kind of a cultural thing where you'd visit people. Like, so you visit like Chris Bumstead or whatnot, you learn a little bit about that. You participate with other spaces, like this whole like Max does TikTok thing or whatever, where you talk with like the new generation, like you work out with them. It's like, so what's going on here? It's like, oh man, like you don't even know who like whatever, like Michael Corey was, or like it doesn't really matter. I think you could bridge the gap, and I think there's a way of rejuvenating and revitalizing kind of the content, if that's what you wanted, and especially in terms of interactions, without it being a compromise of either your identity or the time and effort that you put in other places. And the last thing I'll say, I can identify with that general concept that your circle of friends do certain things and they don't do. I view you as this. I've always kind of viewed you as this. You're kind of like, you're like the prototypical like preppy frat boy, but you have the heart of a powerlifter. So like on the surface, the people that like you associate with, like to your point, like they don't powerlift. They're like, they don't care. Like, let's get some margaritas. But like you do like lifting. Like you clearly, you do like lifting. You do like powerlifting. You do like the pursuit. And so part of it is also, it's tough. Hey, when you get to be our age, tough making new friends, new associations, but it is getting out of that zone where, for myself as an example, my current now, you know, moving forward, maybe we'll see, videographer, phenomenal guy, Walter, shout out to my man. He's an 800-pound deadlifter. He placed fourth at IPF Worlds in 2018 for his category, 93 kg. The current athlete manager for Rascal Apparel, Luke Birmingham, shout out Luke, he's a fan of yours. Don't get the ego boosted. But he said, oh, you're going to see Max? And I said, yes. That he's someone that also trains, and he's trained. They both take their training seriously, and it has absolutely helped me get more back in the groove. Because to your point, with Joey Flex in the programming, I think with us, you need to be a little craftier over time. Not his programming, but the idea to get back on. If normally it would take you 12 weeks to get back to your strength levels, it might take 24 or 36 weeks, right? And it's who you associate with and that general temperature in the room. So I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of things, and that's why Max, like, truly, I feel hopeful in general for the future for the industry, and like if this is like the final will and testament of like what I did or whatnot, I'm entirely comfortable with it. If that was like the last video, you're done, kid. Like no more. Like you go to upload on YouTube and you can't. Like they don't allow you.
Yeah.
Totally cool. I do think of things like that, like not legacy, because again, in the end, 100 years, 200 years, none of it will matter, and that's not being nihilistic. But you understand what I'm saying. I think you have to be comfortable in the moment and comfortable in the impact. And I think there's just a lot of different avenues.
I think I'm definitely at a much better space with like how my views are. But when people ask me about it, I give my honest opinion.
Yeah.
And when I do, it comes off as like, oh, you're upset. I'd be like, well, yeah, I am upset. But I'm definitely at peace with it. And the last thing I'll say on the powerlifting is what I loved about powerlifting was hitting PRs.
Yeah.
And now the chances of me hitting PRs are so far away that it's like, that's why it doesn't excite me as much, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that I'd have to put in, that 20 weeks of training, well, guess what? Like, what happens when I need to go to Spain for some shit? Like, what happens if I need to go overseas for manufacturing?
Yeah.
I can't be like, whoa, pause that. I'm at the peak of my training.
Yeah.
No. Like, I'm going to put that on the back burner, and you can't. Like, to get into the peak level of strength, once you get up there, you have to work the fitness around everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
You're training.
Not to convince you otherwise, but I do think the harder the pursuit, the longer it takes, the more strenuous it was to achieve the end outcome. I think your next PR, if you were to hit it, and I'll say never, will be one of the potentially most emotionally satisfying PRs. I will say this, like I hit a 5-pound overhead press PR in like 2021. Like I was
hit
shipping
140?
away. Yeah, so I hit actually 210 grams. But I went from 225 to 230, 235 to 240. But each one, because it had been a long time since I had hit those PRs, they were very emotionally resonant within me. And so I can say, like, it's not just about the weight, it is about the journey. And I think you'll appreciate that if you pursue it and if you get it. And this is the very final thing about this. If you surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are pursuing those things, it doesn't matter if you're in Ibiza, it doesn't matter wherever you are overseas for manufacturing. You take your squad with you, like you will find a way. I do think that you can create the environment, you can set up all the variables in your favor, that you don't need everything to be perfect, but just perfect enough. And I will say that's one of the lessons for Rascal, we just signed like the world's strongest powerlifter, Jesus Oliveros. I'm not sure when this is going to come up, but that's fine. Like it doesn't really matter. That seeing them, like they're adaptive. I think that's one of the other words I'd use, man. Like Jess Bittner just had her down, and she's like, man, she works like, these pharmacy shifts. She's a pharmacist that are just insane. And then she'll lift at 12 a.m. And it's not only not that she wants it more, let's say, than you. It is like her livelihood and what she does. And it is the thing that gives her like meaning and fulfillment. But it's that they understand that sometimes you have to wrestle in the mud. And I know you know that, but I'm just saying that like, I can relate, because I think strength-wise, like relative for both of us, we're in a very similar situation in terms of how much more is in front of us that we can get.
Yeah.
So I've been there and I see it and I understand. So
There's not much.
No.
There's not much in front of us.
He's standing on the brink, but I still think it's possible.
Omar, what's your max bench press?
375.
375?
Yeah.
What can you bench press right now?
So we're gonna go in today and do a single 330. This is week 3 of building it back. No.
Now, do you feel that your progress in powerlifting and whatever has been hindered by the fact that, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I do believe Omar is one of the last true, this podcast is one of the last true natties that are sitting at this table.
Very sad.
Now,
yes.
Your progress over time is maybe not as extreme as mine, where, people were like, no, it's like, I remember when I hit 600 and then I didn't hit a bench or deadlift PR for 3 more years after that.
Yep.
And people were like, man, it was 3 years ago, 600, I only was 615. And I think the expectations, it's like when people compare your physique to someone else, but I think people leave out when they compare like strength progress of the natural versus the enhanced. And as someone who has, stayed natty for his entire life,
that's where you're wrong, kid.
Look at this shit. What are your opinions on how the unrealistic expectations, whether it be physique or strength, with this whole world because now people are, either whether they're clearly or not clearly on any sort of gear, or very open about it, or just secretive, But then there's the people that are in between, which we saw proven with the Liver King of, hey, he, it turns out he was a lie when he bold-faced said, I am natural, I have never taken it. And what that did is really prove the point is, here's this, what am I trying to say? Here's the wrench thrown into the argument of, what if all the people that don't look like the Liver King, that still have very impressive strength, very impressive physiques, that are still saying, guys, I have never taken TRT, I've never taken any of this. What if they're also lying?
Yeah. Well,
you've never thought about if someone's lying, if they're lying about lying,
Yeah. I will say that the way that I assess whether or not someone's enhanced is not how they look necessarily. It's more constructing a psychological profile of them and the likelihood for them to use it for various reasons.
If someone's bigger than me, they're not natty.
I mean, that's the simplest explanation. That is the only heuristic you need. But I will say, not to go into details, but because my mother's actually very private, but my mom basically did something related to psychiatric assessments.
I thought you were going to say your mom was
it's just like jacked out. Right? She, what's crazy? Like my mom was a former a city track sprinter. She has goated genetics. She has abs right now. It's insane. But what I was going to say is that. So learning that from her, just kind of indirectly, some of her work and so forth, you can construct kind of a profile of someone and then understand what are the reasons behind why they would do certain things. And so I think for me, Max, it's like the content that people make, fine, whatever. Whether or not they're natural, who really knows, right? Unless we do a test. And the test, it's hard to verify because actually there's many ways of passing a test, having a false positive or false negative when actually you're using it, like masking agents, a whole bunch of things. So there's no true way of testing it. But I do think we are early in a time period that reminds me of 2013 of some of the bad things, in the sense that, not to name once again certain names, but there are some people that I think were enhanced back in the day that spoke about being natural, and we called them fake natties or half natties or whatever the case might be. And I think that is occurring right now. I think that's why we have an obligation to try and steer people in the right direction. I think also when you talk then about powerlifting or about your physique, the idea that we should be obviously comfortable with ourselves, because we need to set the expectation. If we don't, then other people normalize the idea that this is how you should look, and it's not really attainable. And that, more to the point, that if people like us are unhappy with our physique, well, is that journey even worth it? And these people, Max, are now competing against other individuals that, are in their age cohort. So they're 18, 19, 20. Why do you think the trend twins were more likely to use? Very likely. I mean, there is, once again, I think it was out of the UK, the amount of people using steroids, it is increasing because there's this pressure. There's a social pressure. We know this, Max. Yes or no? If on Instagram you have the same photo, let's say it's the same person, but you look markedly better over time, would those photos, all other things being equal, and their physique photos, would that photo perform better or worse if they look better?
Better.
Yeah, right? We know this. So there's a financial incentive. So we're in a system now that kind of rewards these behaviors. And so I think for us, the best thing we can do is to show that pursuing this route that we pursued is one that leads to an internal satisfaction, and it's one that's worth doing, because it's up to them to determine for themselves whether or not they want to do it. But I do think there's definitely more people that are secretly enhanced now in 2023 that are talking about certain things on TikTok. And that's why I'm not trying to trash it at all, man. And I think it's just early YouTube where it's kind of finding its way. But I think the people that are using on TikTok, they get away with low level effort, but also a low level of information. And they're essentially convincing these kids of making life altering choices. Let's say they don't talk about it. Cool, whatever. So they're creating false expectations, which is a whole other avenue that could lead to someone becoming disillusioned. But if they are advocating for, I feel so good, they don't know how they're going to feel 5 or 10 years from now. These are very serious compounds with potentially long-term effects. So I think that's why what your sense and what you've talked about too, and that's why you spoke about the concept of platforming, or even you, I'm sure there may have been a temptation at some point in your journey in terms of being enhanced, that we do have an obligation just to be truthful about these things.
Yeah, and I think the Liver King situation actually made probably a lot of people who are secretively saying no, I am natural, when they're not.
Yeah,
being I got to really double down on this lie. I have to now be now I have to condemn the Liver King for lying, and then lean in more, because I still think there are individuals that will, to my face, that I can think of a couple that I am I know you're lying to me. It's not like you don't have just top tier genetics. Like you're lying. You're lying to me. And it's not just because you look better than me. It's just, I think the morality is what bothers me. And I don't know why it does. Well, I guess because that's, the morals, right? Your ethics, but it's
moral conundrum. Yeah.
I just always hated when individuals would compare me to anyone else. And then in my head, I'm just going, guys, train like this individual, buy their programs. And in 10 years, do exactly what they do for 10 years. In 10 years, I want you to come back to me and tell me if you look even a % like this person.
Yeah.
At all. Not even like, oh, we have different genetics. Like, tell me if you look even close to them.
Yeah. Well, I will say, Max, that there was a certain individual that had the Liver King on that also said on a popular fitness podcast during that podcast that they were natural too. And I was like, this is astounding because this person is over 240 or 50 pounds. I'm like, you are clearly, like, we know you're enhanced. Why are you participating in this charade? And it is, and that's why I think we can't let some of that rage, not us, but I do see some people online where it does become a bit of a witch hunt. And the problem with the witch hunt is that you are executing sometimes innocent people. So like we know because we've participated in the space for a long enough period of time that some of this stuff isn't adding up. And that's why I do think constructing for your own, not to accuse anyone, like a psychological profile, like has this person made moral compromises before? Is this person someone who is very outcome oriented, where they care about the views or how they look at those interactions and they're attempting to grow? Well, they're more likely to do these things. It is interesting to me that some of the people, and I've seen this before, like there's been one or two people that talk so much and it's almost like they're trying to convince themselves. And to paraphrase the great James Baldwin, just imagine having to live with all those little lies the whole time, right? Why do you think for people like, I think someone like the Liver King does not sleep easy at night. I think he's someone who is troubled. I think he's trying to convince himself of kind of this illusion he's put up, this once again, charade. But I think he knows deep down inside, and so it creates a schism within them. Yeah.
Here's the complete opposite question. Why don't we just take some steroids? Because
go on.
It always comes down, like I always never do it because I think the health complications will be like, I will be the person that has all the problems.
Yeah.
Everything but because, you hear about like, people, these kids, you shouldn't do it because you don't know the long-term effects. But like, you see some extreme cases where people are dying. I mean, from heart attacks that are, and we're associating those with them blasting a lot of gear, right? Whether or not those are the exact reasons, we don't really know for sure. Maybe if someone goes down that path, but there's also some that, like, let's just say TRT, for example.
Yep.
Is probably, I feel like TRT is like the creatine of the steroid, right? It's tried and true. It is somewhat regulated for where you can go to the farm, you can get prescribed it, you can almost skew the data a little bit to make you a candidate for it, and you'd probably see a lot of benefits. Now you do need to stay on it indefinitely, right? Because it's like once you go down the path, you can't. And I get in the moral complexity of being someone who's been so like, I'm natural and I take pride in being natural. Like, because I would love probably like, oh, wait, I could lift heavier, get a little bit more jacked, recover faster, be big. Like, why don't I do it? Like, why don't I?
No.
Am I so prideful that I'm not natural that is preventing me from ever just doing something that like, hey, this is like the safest way to do it. You'd have a lot of benefits from it. Why not?
So, Max, I am going to say this. We're going to take a pause because I have to use the washroom, and then we're going to resume it because I think this is a good point here. You thought this was how long has this podcast been? You told me
this has been like an hour and 20 minutes so far.
That's not bad. But I am going to, because we drank this, and I wouldn't.
You've been the first guest in the entire history of guests to use the bathroom.
The bathroom, not the washroom. Yeah, but I am going to use it, and then I'm going to answer the question.
Okay,
and we're going to do another shot. Oh, you're going to
myself.
Oh, there you go. You're just going to keep it. You never edited. I thought you were the editor.
Just go, dude.
Just go. All right.
You don't even know where the bathroom is.
I'm going to be mic'd up. Mona will know. Yeah.
You're going to go out these doors, and you're just going to take a giant U-turn.
Got it.
We'll take a pause.
Yeah. Mona's so emotionally uninvested. She's like, bye, safe travels. I was like, I'm going right back into podcast, people. Come on, people. But I was going to say, Max, just out of curiosity, I'm loving this, honestly. But where do you want to go? Because your typical length is like, what, 2 hours?
Or what is it? 2 hours like a longer one.
Is a lot.
So we're at like 140. This is good though. Like we'll keep
I'll go as long as you want.
We'll start in the process of wrapping it up. I feel like we talked a lot about
I knew it was the
the
2 hour
fitness
mark.
community, and where I really wanted to like dive into you as an individual a lot more.
That's part 2. Want to come back with
This
Christian.
there's always more for that.
Max is like, bro, I'm sorry. Actually, it's only metrics, and yours is the worst performing one. You've been absent.
You better
for 3
promote the
years.
shit out of it.
This is no way.
We'll get back to it.
No.
Omar, why don't you take steroids?
For me, there's no real reason because the juice, the pursuit of the PR is the thing I enjoy. The idea of slowly over time getting better at my craft. Like I play a lot of music. I am a musician. My brother is an actual musician.
You play the trumpet or what do you do?
So I play everything. I play piano, so keys, guitar, bass, vocals, everything. And that's why Christian's a little bit of a 1-4-5. He needs to convert over to what's called the 2-5-1, so the minor dominant and then results.
I don't know what you
tonic.
just said.
A whole lot of music stuff, but that's what I wanted Christian on because I want to talk to. I know he's a John Mayer fan, and to me, John Mayer plays the blues for the people that don't have the blues. But I do like some of Christian's chops. I've heard him play, and I basically want to convince him to start playing more. But nonetheless, it is the pursuit itself is what interests me, man. It is the gradual refinement of a craft, getting better over time, or even if I'm not lifting more weight, I'm more astute at it. Like, so the technical execution of it, the process, how I integrate it in my life. And so lifting is one of those things that positively impacts everything else, my mental health, like my relationships, everything, because it does kind of center me. I enjoy the movement, the exertion, all those sorts of things. So the end outcome of the PR is very nice, and it is something that is emotionally satisfying, but it is not a prerequisite in order for me to participate. And as such, something like steroids, if we need it in terms of growth or popularity, that doesn't interest me because I'm in, let's call it, I'm joking when I say this, Max, I'm in the post-YouTube phase, meaning that I can produce content I want, however it'll be received is fine.
Steroids would, same with me, is like steroids would absolutely not help anything financially, like anything.
Yeah.
So that's off the table for sure, of like a benefit of it.
So, but for you, one thing I will say, I'll answer the question about me specifically, but I will say this, and I do know a few people, I'll say on the natural side, that have considered it. The first person that actually is respectable, I'm not talking about one of them young bucks that's like 16 saying like, I'm now on trend, but one of the people that accurately and authentically documents them going over and becoming enhanced, or let's say the TRT route, which is like the budget, right? Like you are enhanced, but you're trying to be morally comfortable with yourself.
Or it's like everyone's taking TRT, but really they're taking like a ton of other shit. They're just like, I'm on TRT, and there's like this. Like I know someone who's the individual. Who's the individual?
Well, that part I could tell you off air. But what I was going to say is that there's a fascinating interview, 60 Minutes, correspondent called Scott Pelley. He was interviewing Hugh Jackman. Now, Hugh, I'll just say this, shout out, he was wearing some Rascal apparel recently, so I have nothing but positive
Wolverine.
things to say. The Wolverine. But with that being said, that he's had a remarkable transformation. We'll leave it at that. He's 45. He looks amazing, right? He's very, or whatever his age is. Scott Pelley's in his 60s, and he lifted with Hugh Jackman. Scott took off his shirt. Now, he's, correspondent, has a suit on. You can never tell. He's more jacked than the Wolverine if you watch that episode. But just to show how ubiquitous like TRT is and what they do, because you go on a dose and they increase your dose. So it is a slippery slope. Let's be clear.
Yeah. I've something that I've always thought in my head is my process. And obviously there's the huge, it's nice, like the freaks, like we'll say like 230
muscle
plus,
daddies.
Muscle daddies. But my reasoning whenever I would consider taking steroids, I'd go, I can lift. I can have a heavier deadlift than all these people on steroids. Why would I don't need steroids. Yeah. Like, it's actually pathetic that you're taking performance enhancing drugs.
Yep.
And you still can't deadlift more than me. Bitch.
Max, comparison is the thief of joy. And all that to say that I think the more we compare, the less satisfied we'll be. It's just simply the case. And because we're participating in a dynamic environment where there are participants that are enhanced, physique-wise, whatever the case might be, will always come up short unless you're the best, and then in which case, congratulations, you're the best. It's interesting. I think people who have been in the fitness space for a long time or older, we can relatively spot. Now, there are the outliers that are like, hey, you just have top tier genetics, right? And you just actually look better than me, right? Yep.
But for the most part, we can tell with a 90+% certainty if someone is enhanced.
Yeah.
I have actually been teaching my girlfriend to spot these fake natties. And
oh,
so
really?
It's funny. We'll be at the gym sometimes or out in public, and she goes like, he's not natty, is he? I'm like, nope. Very good. Yeah. Did you see his 3D delts? Yep.
Yeah.
Not natty. Now, you mentioned Hugh Jackman, who's a not natty, the Wolverine on wearing some Rascal apparel.
Yeah.
This is your largest business endeavor?
Now, yeah.
Now, I made a video forever ago that actually poked fun when I was explaining everyone's fitness personalities.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to find the video, but it was me sitting in the car, and I remember talking about, like, Omar, he's got a t-shirt company. He comes out with like 30 new designs every 4 days.
Yep.
And it's funny that I was joking about that with like the graphic apparel, but you've had this company for so long.
Yeah.
And are still not only trucking along with it, but it's doing extremely, extremely well.
Yeah.
And it's a large focus. Can you dive into a little bit like of what, how do you make your money? And is Rascal like, I don't need to know like the 75 things you do, but like what are the main things that you do for income?
And this right here has just become the most boring part of the podcast. I was loving everything.
They're like,
For me,
it only took 2 hours to actually learn anything about the guest, Max.
No. Why do you think I deflected it? This is, I will say that, so first off, I think everything that we spoke about is incredibly powerful because I think those are actually the real life lessons. This is the anti-red pill podcast, okay? The idea that it doesn't matter.
I respect women so much that I stay completely away from them.
I'm terrified of them. That I would say that I think you should pursue things that give you fulfillment. I think for me, what excited me about Rascal is the creative component of coming up with some of the designs, or now we do some of the content pieces. And so for myself, Max, when did Gymshark start, actually? You know this, maybe. Is it 2012 or 2013? I'm just not sure which.
Right, one of those for sure.
Okay, so I actually think the Rascal started before Gymshark. And I will say that it doesn't matter. There's a few things, the stringers of this and that. I know there's a lot of people being influenced by others, but I will say that Rascal started quite early, so maybe 2012, 2013.
All right, so Gymshark copied Rascal. Okay, got it.
I mean, it became its thing because they were graphic designs that were interesting to look at that usually had a subversive element. So a joke about like creatine being enhanced or like whatever the case might be, that it kind of was counterculture. So our space, once again, there's like the space, right? The greater space. And they would say no pain, no gains. Well, this is a new design from 3 years ago, but
all pain,
no gains. And that's like our bestseller because people there's a cynicism, but there's like almost like a fatalism that is low key. It's positive in the sense that it's aware of the real reality of things, that it's okay to lift and not acquire the end goal that you want. And it's almost the pursuit that is more satisfying. There's a lot to unpack there, but the idea that you want to tell it like it is. So a lot of companies, they attempt to inspire you, or they attempt really to sell you illusion, right? Get the car, get the money, get the women, like be satisfied. And that simply isn't the case. So it came from my love of just, creating art and participating in creative things like we spoke about with music. And it was more on the back burner. It did well in the first few years, but because I'm Canadian and the vast majority of customers are from America, you have to work on some details, this like fulfillment, this and that, all the boring stuff, right? That I could not care about. And so it took a backseat as then I started selling more and more programs. I had been online coaching for a while. We did several different things. I did something with Greg Nuckols, Stronger by Science, and then Kaizen. And so it took more of a backseat just because, training was my bread and butter. Now, there are a few things that occurred. I remember this was in 2015 or 16. I think he became, what is like the champion in WWE, like the champion, like I know it's all like, orchestrated and so forth, but Kofi Kingston, shout out to him. And so he ordered it and I saw him wear it on like an episode. This is 2015. And when I would enter whatever, a coffee shop, doesn't really matter, a restaurant, sometimes I'd wear like a Peach Boy shirt, doesn't matter. People will say, hey, that's a cool top. They don't know who I am.
I want to interject real fast. I will say your graphics, and I'll have them kind of rotating on the screen, but like they're really good.
Thank you.
Like I really like them. Not only the designs, the cleverness. If anything, they're actually self-deprecating T-shirts.
Yeah.
Like no pain or all pain, no gain.
Yeah.
But no, I think the angle that you've done is great. So I just want to interject, say they're sick shirts. If anyone wants them,
it's disgusting me that we're bonding. I was gonna say that. So he wore it, and after he wore, I'm like, oh shit! Like if there's a guy, so that's why I brought up Hugh Jackman. It's not like like celebrity, we want to associate with them. But think about this, Max. We're in an influencer space. Everyone's paid to do something, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it is an exchange, right? So they pay you, you talk about it. Can we trust their opinions? Potentially, yes. Like we know this, but it's harder to differentiate, kind of like the whole natural or not. Well, if you're a celebrity and you're making them dollar bills, You buy this because you like it, right? And he's not looking to be sponsored. So I was like, wow, a guy like of that magnitude what does that mean? And the whole time there were people, when you go into the coffee shop once again or down the street, they're like, oh, that's cool or whatever. And that's like that eye for art. And so what ended up happening, man, we were doing the training program, so on and so forth. But then I had met up with someone, shout out to my man, Tico, the shadow person behind everything. He's the marketing arm. He's worked with a lot of different people talking about examine.com. That when the pandemic hit, I already had made the move in January 2020 before the pandemic to start pursuing Rascal again, because I always knew it was something that had potential, but there's the more boring elements, the fulfillment, the distribution, the cost of printing, all those things that actually impact a business. I just cared about the designs. And so I decided to double down because there always felt like there's this, untapped potential. And so it started growing with his help. It grew even further, and it has grown even further. But we did simple things, Max. Like we would test it out on advertisements like Facebook or Instagram, and comparative to other brands, when someone was to see one of these shirts, and I'm not going to throw any shade to any other company where it's more like, a minimalist design and they just have it there, which is totally valid. But when you put that as an ad, if someone's seeing it on Instagram, well, that looks like every other brand.
Yeah.
Their association is, tied to people that shout it out. Like, oh, so for Nike, like LeBron James, the little check mark, it has become an association imprinted in our brain over, exposed marketing again and again and again. But because these designs are kind of interesting, some of them could be clever, and someone sees that and they're like, oh, that's me. It feels like a breath of fresh air because, to your point, the self-deprecating humor, which is one of the central themes within it, is the idea that, like, I see you. Like, I understand. Like, what do you think? Like, you joke about your physique. I joke about my calves. It's a very normal thing. And it's like you're recalibrating what reality is, because so much of the fitness space is predicated kind of on BS. So anyways, 2020, started taking it way more seriously, started really focusing on the designs. Tico, he's a man of many talents, where he actually is an illustrator. Like, he has that. So we'll come up with ideas, he'll draw it out. And now it's reached the point where that's the fascinating, crazy part. I thought it was a lack of, financial opportunities why people wouldn't start like a clothing company like this. But man, to get an actual like DC or Marvel or Disney tier artist, like someone that actually works and is working in active publications, it's not that expensive to get them to do designs, your own individual like original artwork. And so it's all about ideas. And I think people are just kind of like creatively maybe bankrupt, or they don't have it, or it's just our own pocket. I thought like the first like DC artist I pursued, not to do a DC inspired design, but just like a good like graphic tee, like, high detail. I was like, oh, that's gonna be thousands of dollars. And then he gave me a quote, and I was like, what? I'm like, only that? I'm like, so that's the separation. So it's anyways, all in the execution. And then the other thing that really helped it grow is that we've now started with some of the content stuff. Or I don't know if you saw, Max, like we did one with Jess Bittner, and shout out to Luke, the Muscle Mommy, like kind of content piece, and got like 20,000 likes, nothing crazy, but that was just, we posted it, and that's organic. And so that's an extension of kind of, there was always a personality within my channel that, due to technical limitations, I didn't really execute. And honestly, I'll admit, some parts of me are lazy, where it's like, to learn the skill such as yourself, editing and shooting and so on and so forth, wasn't quite up my alley. That it all kind of came together, and now it's formed this brand that people identify with, that I would say it's like anti-fitness culture, like what fitness culture has become. So it's kind of like a counterculture brand.
Well, it's sick, and I think it's been on the up and up in terms of its growth. I see it on social, like just the engagement alone on it. Yeah. I see ads that will be for it. Do you think that this year will be your most financially successful year with Rascal, or do you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with saying what you think you'll do this year?
So no, I do keep everything private, Max. I know you ask people those questions, but I'll say
less than $1 billion, right?
Yeah. Bill Gates is buying it right after he goes to jail. But I would say that why do you think his wife divorced him? Like, now we're getting into the conspiracy. This podcast is but it is more and more every single year. I'd say since 2020 was the landmark year where we like doubled down. Like, is this a thing? Like, what are we gonna do? Because I was involved in many different kind of pursuits, and you know this, Max, you only have so much energy. And for once, it was the pandemic, and it was the potential financial scarcity that produced that outcome within me, that I never was someone. Both of my parents, they chose callings in terms of their occupations that they enjoyed, that they found fulfillment. And so they inspired me a lot in terms of what I pursued. But just, again, them getting older, pandemic hitting, I was like, you got to grow up at some point. And that's why, for me, kind of to your point, you create content. You do it because you enjoy it. I do the same thing. I'm like, all right, let's try and get a little bit of a payday just so we're like safe, right? And that was the flip, but the switch that flipped. But it's not one of those things for me where I think some people really enjoy the active component of growing it, and it's cool like seeing the numbers go up. But I want to reach a point where it's like it's sustainable, you're earning an income, and then you have enough latitude and like creative freedom to do what you want. That's like the end goal. It's not like oh my god, like grow this $1 billion company and then sell it to like whatever, like Under Armour, you know.
Well, it's cool to see you grow, man. I mean, not physically, but like.
Well, we're staying just
business savvy.
Yeah. Growing in some sort of way.
What's great is whenever someone's like, Max, you look the exact same. I'm like, talk to me in 7 years.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Tell me how much drastically different you look than now.
Yeah.
But kind of to wrap up a little bit, I know this podcast has been extra long schlong. I think that people like it. We have to get you back because we need to actually learn about you. But a question about you is,
we got to do that trio I told you with because I think it's just good.
We get it. You really are interested in Christian, bro.
No. It's not for the. But I just think that like, what's interesting to me, I've never had this I think I knew how this conversation was going to go because I know enough about you.
Unpredictable, yeah.
And I know, a full day of eating, number 98. Here we go. No, but with Christian too, is that we're calibrating our experiences because we've had similar experiences. Like think about. Let's say it like an athlete, right? Top level, one played for another team, one played for another, but they both were at a high level and they could relate on certain things that I think the vast majority of people can't. Yeah. And there's only maybe 24 of us from that time that were very important. And that's not me being arrogant, but just what happened, right? They could probably talk about those things. So no, I love that conversation.
Why, as a question about you, and because I mean, you briefly mentioned how you didn't want to talk about finances, which I understand. A lot of people want to be private about that, but you live a very private life in general. Yep. I recently watched your video where you did the tour of your home gym. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But and as someone like myself who not only is very into people's vlogs and personal life, like, but I think a lot of viewers are probably like, holy shit, it's not just like in the gym. It's like kind of like about him. Like, oh, I can see like, do you lives up there? Like, all this shit. Why are you, might be a weird question, but like, why as a public figure and as someone who's, been on social media for over a decade, why do you choose to live such a closed off personal life and like not show people the behind the scenes, not show people maybe your relationships, what you're doing, your home, your vacations, like I show everyone. Yeah. Right. Why is that a choice?
I mean, I am just a very private, insular person. Like I have my family. I'm very close with my family. It's sort of also the way that I was raised, not necessarily culturally, I'll say, but I take a lot of inspiration. My biggest role model is my mother. Just in terms of you have, and there's a Japanese proverb, I believe it's like you have 3 masks. The mask you show yourself, the mask you show to the world, and the mask you show your family. But I think there's different aspects of yourself, and I'm comfortable sharing a certain portion. I'm not trying to share elements of myself to be understood. Like I know who I am, you know what I mean? And and there's a part of me that I want to communicate, and it's more the information and what I'm trying to impart that's important rather than me as a personality. I think I have like a dynamic, like fun, like charismatic personality.
Yeah, you're okay.
But I only want to show a certain portion of that because everything else, I think it enriches it and it enhances it when you only do it for yourself. Because sometimes, Max, what it seems to me, not with you, but again, in general with the space, you always have this second perspective because now you're performing, like theater, like public theater, because it's for an audience, not what you do, but there's always in the back of your head, like let's say you buy a car for, I don't know, your mom, right? And you want to film it. Well, now it's like, what's the intention behind it? Well, it could be split. It could be both things at once. You want to help out your mom, but like, this is hot content. Yeah. And so I think it creeps into every choice you make. And a lot of my heroes are people I describe as being kind of ideologically pure. I'm not saying that I have that, but they're totally consistent with their choices and they make it very easy. And that's what like I think a lot of the OGs have elements of that I think because the financial incentives are higher now, that people are more likely, people don't like, I think they're products of their environment largely, which means that because there's more financial incentives, people are more likely to take those now versus us 10 years ago because no one's getting paid. So you got to do, if you're doing it because you clearly love it. So it instills that right within you. And so I think for myself, that whole kind of fractured identity that then can start occurring. It's not something that would give me any fulfillment whatsoever. I'm not like to people, oh my God, I want to show you these things. I know myself. And like, just as a proxy, why do you think little things? So the age thing, I kept more of a secret largely because I did have a stalker accidentally when I used to sell programs.
Wait, the age thing?
Like where I don't talk about age or like where I'm from, like cultural identity, any of those things.
Wait, you don't tell people how old you are?
And that one is because they could use that for like information, right? To use your information if they like dox you or whatever. I know you've been talking for years on YouTube, but there was
so you won't. The public doesn't know how old you are.
Oh, and I'll say like I'm over 30. Like I'm very comfortable with my age, right? But I don't talk about like.
I'm going to find out after this podcast how old you are.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Is like we're right in the same ballpark.
That's
I think
what I
I might
thought,
be a year younger or a same. But what I was going to say is that
you've already said too much, dude.
Now I'm screwed. But there's no benefit to me, right? To that. But accidentally one time, this is over a decade ago, man, where I used to sell training programs. I didn't know this as AWeber. They required you to have an address. I'm like, oh, like your address for if they mail you. I'm like, no, it's the address at the bottom of like your emails you send out. Thousands of people. Anyway, so I dealt with the scenario, nothing crazy, but with a stalker. And from that point, I'm like, I'm sharing nothing, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's just an interesting other side. It's not like wow, you're so weird for being private. I'm probably so weird, like with showing ever. I show too much. I'm too easy accessible. You know, I had Derek more plates, more dates, and
Same or no? Same in terms of not sharing, or
bro, I in the opening thing I said like, hey, like Derek, like what's your last name? He wouldn't even say his last name.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know that. You know, I don't know. It's just interesting for someone who's on the complete opposite. I'm like, hey guys, here's the inside of my butthole. You know.
Well, I think to me in ways. It once again enriches those experiences that could only be shared privately because it's only people that you value, not that you don't value an audience, but that can understand the intricacies of a moment. So like you're with your girlfriend, a significant other, and sometimes like the most poignant moments are the ones that don't last, that are memories. There's no photographs. You were just there. You know exactly what I mean, right? Like let's say like moments, for example, like with your father, like whatever the case might be, that are just imprinted on you, and you would never want to film them, right? Yeah. And they're just, and I think from knowing and seeing how sometimes let's call it like either reality TV or whatnot, I don't want that, and I don't know like so it's not this firm opposition, but I think I know enough about myself that it makes me then comfortable to participate. Like I jokingly, like kind of Kendrick Lamar style, is like antisocial extrovert. It's like I go there, like we socialize, man. We go to now Alpha Land and train. We socializing with everyone, but it's because I know like what I've shared, what I'm comfortable sharing, what I'm comfortable portraying, the aspects of myself, because I think we're all multifaceted individuals. So that's all it is. And I made that choice because I was making informative fitness content, so it doesn't matter at all any of those things, right? Like about myself.
I think on the flip side, and I want to kind of wrap up things with this more of a deep conversation. A big reason, not only do I just think I'm so cool, right? But I love sharing everything because I am able to revisit these memories. And when I have children, when I'm long gone, I think anyone who cares about me, they can maybe get some enjoyment out of reliving Max, reliving Dad, reliving, these moments. And, very recently we got the news of our friend Garrett of Massthetics passing.
Yep.
And, immediately what I did was go back and look at all like the footage of Garrett and look at the memories that I had. And it's such an unfortunate situation. And there's still a lot of unknown about that. But I love the ability to go and relive those memories with him. That I was able to capture, right? And I was glad that I filmed all these things. And I guess that's maybe kind of the reasoning why, the noble reason of why I really try to film everything, because, something could happen. And I think if I can maybe bring some enjoyment to my loved ones, they miss me, they can see me on this content, on these things. And I don't know if that's maybe too deep looking into it, but that's a big reason of why I'm so like, I want to share the happy memories. I want to share the sad memories. I want to share all these things for when my time is done, whether it be too soon or, hopefully, 700 years from now, revisiting these things.
Let's go even deeper, man. And again, you can cut out whatever you want, but is part of that from the fact of anything, because I've dealt with loss myself, to do with your father and like more memories you wish you had?
Well, yeah, I think it's something that I don't directly think about, but something that I do bring up frequently with my family is that I have like, and obviously this is a different time, of technology, right? But we still had cameras, but like I have, besides of me as a literal baby have photos with my dad, I have 3 pictures of my dad.
Yeah.
I have no videos of him.
Yeah.
I have the video of him getting married to my mom when I don't even think I was born yet, or I was just being born. And I have a baby box of like pictures of him feeding me as a baby. But above the age of 7, 5,
yeah,
I have 2.
Yeah.
Even of just him.
Yep.
There's not photos. There's not video. And I wish I had those memories. And it's one of those things of like, when you go, I'll use jet skiing, but like jet skiing or whatever, I wish you could just experience it and not film it. I'm like, I wish me and my dad had gone jet skiing. I wish he had been like, Max, I'm going to film this shit.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that's a really deep way to look at it, but I think that's an angle of something that I don't want to use it as a validation of this is like, if my girlfriend's like, hey Max, like don't film during our anniversary, be like, no, just in case I die, but it's like maybe a morbid way to think of it, but it's that is an angle for sure. And because of the loss of my dad, it's I wish I had a YouTube channel I could go watch at nighttime, and so.
No, that's incredibly powerful, and I actually could completely understand. And that's why I was thinking about that, and the fact, like, so I have an older brother, you have an older brother, Chase, and the idea that he probably remembers a little bit more. And so we're talking now with permanence, memory, and then there is that saying, that there are 2 deaths. There's the physical death, and then there's the death when everyone forgets about you. So almost a spiritual one.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand all that, man, and I think it is kind of profound. It's so bizarre how this happened, where we both found out the news yesterday about our colleague Garrett. Condolences to him and his family, Garrett Gonzalez of Massthetics, and that's like a whole other podcast to talk about, like their impact, that space, like so many crazy things. But the unexpected passing of him that occurred, that you can go back and now review some of that footage, relive some of those memories that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. I understand that completely. Like I think sharing those elements, or even like, so I'll put it another way, Max. I document things on my own, but for my own personal, like for me to consume for myself.
It's a vlog with just private links.
There's 1,000.
I've actually been daily vlogging in the past.
And so I would say that one of the things too that both myself and my brother get from our mom, we have a very good memory. So like I can recall like eerily like some details, and so that could be like a bias on my side of why, like, oh no, I remember exactly like how that went. Like we like remember when we said like 2013, like was it me or was you? I'm like, no, like I know it was you, just from that challenge. So I think it's about remembering things and remembering things correctly and being able to reminisce. And I think that's one of the most powerful parts of being human, is to participate in these shared experiences and to be, like we're talking about a community now. That's what we formed, and that's what we're talking about here, like-minded individuals kind of participating. And then Ed Cohn one time said something on Mark Bell's YouTube channel, not his podcast, where he said, he broke all these records. He's like generally regarded as definitely one of the greatest powerlifters of all time, if not the greatest. And he said it was more the friends he made along the way and the memories that meant the most to him. And we all feel that, and that's why I think for you, like what you said about you documenting it, and this whole new wild way that, think about it, that's digital imprint that you're leaving. Like who knows where it'll be 200, 500 years from now. Not that we're talking about, once again, legacy, but just the idea of how things impact one another. Like we're archaeological excavations of unearthing certain things, like different cultures and like different pieces. Aliens are going to find us 400 years from now. It's like, damn, look at this vlog here. Like, what were they doing?
The way I like to look at it is that, when I have a kid, if they're like, hey, like, Dad, what were you like growing up? I'd be I have a now, because the title and thumbnail, you will have no idea where to find specific things. But if you just start at one and watch, you can watch the past 10 years of my life unfold.
Yeah.
Literally, like almost everything that I did past 10 years is documented on YouTube.
Yeah, I think your
good or bad.
Your tenure, the video you did where you put a lot of effort into.
I did not edit that video.
Oh, you did?
Oz edited it. So you can see the difference. You can see the difference of,
I was
like,
give you some credit.
of an actual creative director, editor. And now there was a lot of that video that I reworked, refilmed, completely changed and helped. But but you can, that kind of stuff I don't edit.
I think that's real. Like I enjoy looking at photos of my family as an example. So for your kids, it'd be the exact same thing. You're just going to set them down every single day. It's like, I'm not going to teach you how to read. I'm not going to teach you the multiplication table. you're going to learn about day one, full day of eating. Sit your ass down
right.
every single week for the rest of your life, because I may try it enough. But I do think that is, it would be powerful. And I can only assume you've spoke about this before. You want family and like kids and all those things. That would make a lot of sense, man.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man.
It will be crazy.
It's going to be, you know what I will say is I want in the future, whoever of us, might be Christian, makes it the biggest. In 5 years, I want to get a biggest private jet, and we're going to bring all the OGs, everyone, to an island.
Island? Epstein's Island?
Not that island. And we're just gonna have a great time. We're gonna chat around campfires, and we're gonna talk about the memories of the golden era of YouTube. And you know, is the fitness industry, has it been like the death of it since the greats have been there?
I think it's another era, man. And I do think the golden era, you can't do that again. That time period, exactly as we spoke about, not only us, but what happened. So that's why it's extra special. I did not go to any high school reunion. I actually didn't go to the prom or the
I don't
graduation.
care about those.
But like that's the part that's funny. To your point, like one of my friends said, "You'll regret this like 10 years from now." It's now more than 10 years. I don't regret it.
You would regret if I invited you to the OG YouTuber reunion.
Now that'd be, that's what I'm saying. Like I was talking with Simon just the other day, right? And like Candido, like he's doing this thing. He's finding, as he said, a good Christian woman to get married to. I'm like, that is a lovely, that sounds like an AI wrote that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, go you, right?
I need to get Candido on here because I don't know what the hell he's doing on the daily basis.
No one, I mean, yeah, he's trying to release a 7-week program for 3 or 4 years. I'm like, all right, sit me down and tell me just your day to day.
Yeah, he just comes out with these fucking weirdest, crazy, high quality videos out of left field that you don't expect. But man, it's been cool chopping it up with one of the greats, one of the people that have been around since day one that I looked up to, you know, starting, and that you had a large impact on my career and, you know, the trajectory of my world. And it's just been super surreal. And even though we don't really communicate or have hung out many, many times over the past decade, I feel like this conversation was so natural and real because we've like gone through all the same things. And I want to thank you for coming on here. And do you want to lead the people with anything that's coming up for you in the near future? This won't come out for about a couple weeks, but I don't know if you have any, you know, projects you're working on, or what's the future of Omar?
Nah, man, I don't like to promote myself. I will say though, to get back to it, I did genuinely enjoy this. I know unless the title and thumbnail is juicy, I'll never be invited again because it's all about the metrics.
I think this one's going to be the death of the fitness industry. Something like that.
Yeah. But I did enjoy chopping it up, like I said, because there's so few of us still creating content, and for you at a high level, meaning that I think you haven't lost the edge when it comes to your craft, and you guys are successful. I mean, like both of you, like what you've done, who you inspire. Like that's why I saw, what was it, like Jesse James West?
Yeah.
Where like you watch your stuff, like it's quite clear who's influenced who. So I am just excited for the future, and it was fun to kind of go down that memory lane, but also just frame it in terms of the future. Because like I said, I always am very hopeful for that future. So I'll leave it at that.
That'll be that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to put Omar's YouTube channel. You got to blow the dust off of it every now and then. But all of his links down there, Rascal Apparel, which has some of the coolest, I mean, I'm just going to say graphic tees. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But in terms, like, just a really cool brand, man. Like, again, when I see the ads, I go down the rabbit hole and look at all of them, and I'm just like, these are good. Like, these are actual, like, good T-shirts.
Thank you.
So that'll be that, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, to give it a thumbs up, hit the like button. Dude, I suck at these outros.
Nah.
If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on any sort of podcast streaming service, make sure you give us a 5-star review. I don't know what it does, but I think it helps out. That will wrap up this episode of Don't Be Sour. New episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Eat more sour strips and ever forward. You like that?
I like it. I like it.
Let's go lift some weights.
No, that was awesome, man. How long was it? It was like 2 hours and change.
It was.
No,
it was
like I'm done.
Yeah, it was a little over 2 hours.
How do you feel about that? Not the episode, but I mean like just length. Fine.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna cut out half this episode.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
you're like 95%.